over to youtube.com/Hamza Saada. Just go to the Hamza Saada on YouTube for better quality on my streams. Better quality. What's going on, YouTube? If you are watching this after the stream is over, what is going on? Comment down Free Palestine if you're watching this afterwards, and leave a like on the stream and subscribe if you're new. Why not? It means the world to me. It helps out quite a bit. And we're gonna be reacting to Israel's response to the hearing from yesterday, the South Africa hearing, and Israel is responding. We're gonna see what they have to say. I do have something. I have this right here. This is a Hamas counter for every time they say Hamas. I'm probably gonna fill this all the way up. Obviously, it's like inverted on the screen, so I'm gonna flip it whenever I'm reacting. But until we start reacting, which is in 9 minutes from now, they don't start streaming until 9 minutes or until 3 a.m., which is 9 minutes from now. I'm gonna be talking to Israelis live. So my usual videos that I post, that's what we're gonna be doing until then. But yeah. So if you're watching this after the stream, just skip 10 minutes and you'll be able to see the full thing. The reaction. So anyways, here we go. Let's continue, guys. Let's continue. Everyone remind me, okay? We have 9 minutes. Uh-oh. They're lagging. They're lagging. Alright, well, I guess I'll skip them. Hello? Damn, that was quick. He was quick to skip. Okay. Hello?
Oh, hi, I met you before.
You met me before? When did you meet me?
Yes. Maybe like a month ago.
Month ago? No, wait, where are you from?
Yeah, Israel. I mean, you can see on the location.
Yeah, I wasn't looking.
Oh, so, I don't know, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
I saw you on live like a couple minutes ago, so...
Really? Nice.
Yeah. But I was scrolling because I didn't notice. I just noticed your curls and the glasses.
Aw, you like the curls?
It's basic. I don't know. I see everyone with curls now.
Aw.
So I don't know. You want to debate? Like you always debating people.
I come on here to learn and see. I'm not really a debater.
Oh, so
yeah.
Like no, but your videos you debating with Israelis.
Well, no. So I don't debate. I'm not a debater.
So you ask questions and like they answer and like what's your
So if you watch my videos, it starts with them usually. But I'm not a debater. No, I just come on here to learn and see. That's kind of what I do on here.
Oh,
it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah. So you're a Palestinian, right?
I am Palestinian. I'm 100% Palestinian, both on my mom and dad's side. Yeah.
How old are you?
20.
How old your mom were when she gave you birth?
What are you asking me?
No, because if it was after Israel was established, so you're not Palestinian. That's why I'm asking.
Oh no, I am Palestinian. My grandfather was also born in Palestine, which is older than Israel, and I would assume your grandfather is older than Israel as well. No.
I mean, most of the people, majorities are, in Israel, yeah.
Okay, in Palestine is centuries.
People age, that's normal, that's completely fine, that's people age.
So then what are you asking me?
I'm asking you because, like, if your parents were here, born here, before Israel was established, they're Palestinian, but if it was after, they aren't Palestinians.
So my grandfather's Palestinian?
If he was born here, yeah.
Okay, and my father was also born in Palestine.
Well... What year? That's what I'm asking.
Before 75 years ago, which it's still Palestine. Where he was born, it's Palestine. Where's the West Bank? Where is Gaza? Is that Palestine?
Gaza is Palestine.
Okay, so my father is... I mean, he wasn't born in Gaza, but he was born... Where else? Where else is Palestine? Is that West Bank? Is Palestine?
There's 3 parts in the West Bank.
Okay.
There's like 2 parts controlled by Israel.
My father's Palestinian.
Okay. Why are you pro-Palestinian? I'm asking you, like, a genuine question. Can you...
I am Palestinian.
Pro-Palestinian.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so... I am Palestinian, so... why would I not want to support my country and my people?
There's, like, so much Palestinians who support Israel in Israel.
No. Those are not.
So
Those are not
you're saying there's not even
Palestinians.
one. You're saying there's not even one Palestinian, right?
Oh, I'm sure there's traitors. I know many actually that are traitors,
Oh,
but you're saying that like it's a normal thing. It's not normal at all.
there are people who support Israel who are Arabs or Palestinians. There
Okay,
are
which one
people.
is it? Arabs or Palestinian? Because those are two different things.
Palestinians are
Palestinians,
Arabs.
okay, but Arabs are not Palestinians. Like Arabs
I
are
know some.
Lebanese,
I
are they
know
could
some of
be
them.
all of
Lebanese
these
are not
other.
Arabs. They are Phoenicians. They're not Arabs. They are Phoenicians. You can.
Okay, okay. I don't know. I don't even know what we're
Okay, I'm
talking about at
asking you
this point.
why.
What are you
Okay,
asking me?
okay, okay. There is a war, right?
It's
And you
not a
stand
war.
on one
It's a
side.
genocide on the Palestinian people.
Okay, okay. You always say genocide.
It is,
Wonder why the
and that's
population
actually
goes
what
now.
the hearing is about
Okay.
right now. That I have to go in 4 minutes.
Okay, okay. So it's war. You stand on one side. What's your reason? Why you stand on that side and not on the other? You're supposed to have like reasons, right?
What are you talking about?
Like you stand on Palestine side, right?
What is this, like a soccer game? I'm on the oppressed side. I'm on the people that
Oh,
are
oppressed.
oppressed right now.
So is it okay to like rape women, kill kids?
There's no
Okay.
substantial evidence of either. Of
Okay, so
babies being killed and
you can go
women being
search.
raped.
There's
There
exactly
is
videos.
there is no substantial evidence of
They
that
are
happening.
filming videos exactly.
However, there is substantial evidence. There is a lot of evidence of that happening to the Palestinian people, to men
Show
and
me.
women.
I want you to show me.
I don't have the time to pull that up for you right now. As I mentioned, I gotta go in 3 minutes for the hearing, the Israel's hearing. But you can look it up yourself. Apparently, you just took a screenshot of me. But apparently, you really love.
What?
You just took a screenshot of me. I saw the glare. I saw
I'm not
the.
on the phone even.
It's
I'm not
okay.
even on the
No, it's
phone.
okay. I have many fans from Israel, but I wanted to mention that
What?
if you wanted to find this for yourself, if you want to look this up, you have access
I
to the
will
internet.
definitely look this
So
up,
go
don't
ahead
worry,
and
I
look
will
it up.
definitely.
Look up
Okay.
Palestinian people being raped and kids being
Raped?
killed. Yes.
Okay.
Do you know
Before
about
you
Tantura?
skip
Do you
him, okay.
watch the movie
You
Tantura?
were
This
on the
happened in
debate with Daniel
1948,
Brown.
Nakba.
You were on the debate with Daniel Brown, right?
Yes, I was. I wasn't a
Exactly.
debate, but I was
Why
talking
you
to
skip?
him.
Okay. Why you skip him?
I did not skip him. I don't know if you watch the video. If you watch,
I
are you
didn't.
talking about the video where I left? Like I walked out of my
Yeah.
door? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he cut up that 1 hour almost conversation I had with him into
So
1
you
minute.
must be you showed the full video, right? Where did you show
If you go to my page, you will see I made a 6-minute response video debunking every single claim, point, fact he had, which was completely wrong. So go watch that video, and you'll even see a
okay.
clip of me coming back
Okay.
after that video's
Okay,
ended.
can I ask you-
I
can I
have
ask
to
you
go.
something?
No, you can't because I have to go right now. I'm so sorry. I have to go. 2
okay.
minutes. Okay, what do you want? What do you want? Just what's the question?
Okay.
Last question, because I gotta go.
Okay. So tell me why the Palestinian prisoners, were begging to go back to prison after they will be free.
I don't even know what you're talking
about.
about. I don't think that's even a thing.
In the exchange of the hostages and the prisoners, I'm asking.
I don't think what you're telling me is a thing. I've never heard of that. What I do know is that thousands of those prisoners are not.
Palestinian and a Palestinian. You must be searching all the info.
Apparently, you're pro-Palestinian. Then that's wrong. What you're saying is like completely. I have never heard of that. What I do know, however, is that thousands of the Palestinian people that are held hostage, they're not prisoners, that are held hostage in the jails in the West Bank are they were not charged for any crimes.
You said
Thousands of them, including women and children.
You said we rape Palestinians, right?
Yes, and do you know Tantura? Do you know Tantura? Do you know Tantura and Deir Yassin? Tantura and Deir Yassin. Those are villages in 1948 during the Nakba that were completely massacred. People were raped.
Okay.
And
can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I don't know about you Palestinians, but when for example, I have friends, okay?
Okay, okay. I gotta. It's 2:59 right now. It starts in 1 minute.
Okay, whatever.
Okay, but what's your point? If you can get to it really, really quick.
Why would we rape Palestinians? I don't know. It's kind of racist to me now, but it's a disgust to touch them when they kill our people. Why would we touch them anyways?
Why would you touch them? 30,000 Palestinians, innocent them. No. 30,000 innocent Palestinians have been killed in the past 3 months, half of which are kids, nearly half of which are kids. That is, they are deliberately targeting the civilians. And you can actually just listen to the hearing that we're going to listen to right now. Listen to the lies that they're going to be spreading. I got to go now. It's 3 a.m. Bye. Okay, so guys, I have to start this up. I didn't even look up the link. Guys, can someone send me the link? Because I want the Al Jazeera one. I want Al Jazeera live. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, okay, it started. It started. It started. It started.
The country has had enough. We will not take it any.
Is it on Al Jazeera Live? Can anyone confirm yes or no in the chat? If anyone can confirm yes or no in the chat, is that on Al Jazeera Live? No? Yes? Not yet? Okay, but is it going to pop up there, though, is my question. Is it going to pop up there? Yes? What, will it end up popping up there? If so, then I'm going to get that started. Okay, so that means I do this, and then I do this, and I deactivate, activate. There we go. How do I do that on my YouTube now? I got to do this, activate. Uh-oh. So I do this, filter. Sorry, YouTube. 1 second, 1 second. I do this as a... dude, I don't know how to do this. Let's start virtual cam. I don't even know. OBS virtual cam. Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay, there we go. Uh-oh. What is this? Get out of the screen. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Okay, so we have this. Right over here. I'm going to move myself down here. And this over here. I'm going to crop this. Sorry, guys. I should have had this ready before, but she's just taking my time up, that person, bro. Hold on. 850, 1000. Okay, that's good. Bring this down. Okay, I think it's about to start. It's about to start.
Near the capital, Sana'a. It is the first time Western countries have launched strikes against the Iran-backed group.
This is not it.
Since it started attacking ships in the Red Sea.
This is not it, bro. Where is it? Where is it? Oh my gosh. You know what? I'm just going to pull up the UN. Can someone type the link in the chat, please? It's not on yet? Can someone type the link in the chat? Someone type the link in the chat, please. Because I know it's on the UN Live, but... Okay, I got it. webtv.un.org. webtv.un.org. I got it, I got it, I got it. I got it.
After a former Miss India.
What the fuck is this? What is this? How do I find this, bro? The International Court. Okay, okay.
Aware of why the Genocide Convention,
He's speaking.
which has been invoked in these proceedings, was adopted.
Let me share my screen real quick.
Seared in our collective memory is the systematic murder of 6 million Jews.
Okay, we didn't
as
do
part
that.
of a premeditated and heinous program for their total annihilation. Given the Jewish people's history and its foundational texts, it is not surprising that Israel was among the first states to ratify the Genocide Convention without reservation and to incorporate its provisions in its domestic legislation.
What the hell is this?
For some,
Okay.
the promise of never again for all peoples
Technical
is a
difficulty,
slogan.
sorry.
For Israel, it is the highest moral obligation. Raphael Lemkin, a Polish Jew who witnessed the unspeakable horrors of the Holocaust, is credited with coining the term genocide. He helped the world recognize that the existing legal lexicon was simply inadequate to capture the devastating evil that the Nazi Holocaust unleashed. The applicant has now sought to invoke this term in the context of Israel's conduct in a war it did not start and did not want. A war in which Israel is defending itself against Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and other terrorist organizations whose brutality knows no bounds. The civilian suffering in this war, like in all wars, is tragic. It's heartbreaking. The harsh realities of the current hostilities are made especially agonizing for civilians.
Yalla, yalla, one more
Given
time.
Hamas's reprehensible strategy of seeking to maximize civilian harm to both Israelis and Palestinians, even as Israel seeks to minimize it.
How many times
As
did you
this
say it?
court
Is that two?
has already made clear, the Genocide Convention was not designed to address the brutal impact of intensive hostilities on the civilian population, even when the use of force raises, quote, very serious issues of international law and involves enormous suffering and continuing loss of life, end quote.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit.
The convention was set apart to address a malevolent crime
Sorry, this is
of
too
the most
funny.
exceptional severity.
Let's listen.
We live at a time when words are cheap.
You're cheap.
In an age of social media and identity politics, the temptation to reach for the most outrageous term, to vilify and demonize, has become for many irresistible. But if there is a place where words should still matter, where truth should still matter,
Not yours. You don't have a
surely
truth.
a court of law. The applicant has regrettably put before the court a profoundly distorted factual and legal picture. The entirety of its case hinges on a deliberately curated, decontextualized, and manipulative description of the reality of current hostilities. South Africa purports to come to this court in the lofty position of a guardian of the interest of humanity.
If you're on TikTok, I'm live on YouTube. Better quality on YouTube. Link in the bio.
Existence in its opening presentation yesterday, that broad commitment to humanity rang hollow. And in its sweeping counterfactual description of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it seemed to erase both Jewish history and any Palestinian agency or responsibility. Indeed, the delegitimization of Israel since its very establishment in 1948 in the applicant's submissions sounded barely distinguishable from Hamas's own rejectionist rhetoric. It is unsurprising, therefore, that in the applicant's telling, both Hamas's responsibility for the situation in Gaza and the very humanity of its Israeli victims are removed from view. The attempt to weaponize the term genocide against Israel in the present context
Is that 4?
does more than tell the court a grossly distorted story. And it does more than empty the word of its unique force and special meaning. It subverts the
Blah,
object
blah,
and
blah,
purpose
blah,
of the
blah, blah,
convention
blah.
itself,
Hamas, blah, blah, blah,
with
blah.
ramifications for all states seeking to defend themselves against those who demonstrate total disdain for life and for the law. Madam President, members of the court, on Saturday, October 7th, a Jewish religious holiday, thousands of Hamas and other militants breached Israeli sovereign territory by sea, land, and air, invading over 20 Israeli communities, bases, and the site of a music festival. What proceeded, under the cover of thousands of rockets fired indiscriminately into Israel, was the wholesale massacre, mutilation, rape, and abduction.
No, there is
of
no
as many
evidence of
citizens as
rape.
the
You
terrorists could
fucking
find
liar.
before Israel's forces repelled them. Openly displaying elation, they tortured children in front of parents and parents in front of children,
Who's they?
burned people, including infants, alive,
That is not true either.
systematically raped and mutilated scores of women, men, and children.
Lies, 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 lies,
All
lies.
told, some
Holy
1,200 people were
shit.
butchered that day,
No.
more than 5,500
Half of them.
maimed,
And
and some 240 hostages abducted.
400 were killed by
including
Israel.
infants, entire families, persons with disabilities, and Holocaust survivors, some of whom have since been executed, many of whom have been tortured, sexually abused, and starved in captivity.
Are you talking about the kids in
Representatives of the
Gaza?
hostages'
I'm confused.
families are in this courtroom today, and we acknowledge their presence and their boundless suffering.
The amount of
We know
lies,
of the
bro.
brutality of October 7th, not only from the harrowing testimonies of the survivors, the unmistakable proof of carnage and sadism left behind, and the forensic evidence taken at the scene. We know it because the assailants proudly filmed and broadcast their barbarism. The events of that day are all but ignored in the applicant's submissions, but we are compelled to share with the court some fraction of its horror. The largest calculated mass murder of Jews in a single day since the Holocaust. We do so not because these acts, however sadistic and systematic, release Israel of its obligations to uphold the law as it defends its citizens and territory. That is unquestionable. We do so because it is impossible to understand the armed conflict in Gaza without appreciating the nature of the threat that Israel is facing.
By who?
And the brutality and lawlessness
Say it.
of the armed force confronting it.
Say it.
In the volume of materials submitted to members of the court, access has been provided to a portion of the raw footage for separate screening. But I am obliged to put before the court today some small fragment of the scenes of unfathomable cruelty that took place in hundreds of locations on that horrible day. Johnny Simantov, a wheat farmer, and his wife Tamar, an activist for women's rights, lived in kibbutz Nir Oz. When the rocket fire started, they hid in the safe room with their 4-year-old son Omer and their 6-year-old twins Arbel and Shachar. During their rampage, Hamas militants set fire to their house. Johnny texted his sister.
Wait. Did he say it?
They're here. They're burning us. We're suffocating. The whole family was burned alive to ashes, making DNA identification especially difficult. A survivor of the Nova Music Festival massacre testified to police to witnessing a Hamas militant brutally raping a young woman.
8.
As another militant cut off her breast and toyed with it.
Show me, you fucking liar.
Then raped her again, shooting her in the head while still inside her. In one video recorded by a home surveillance system, a Hamas militant throws a grenade into a safe room where a father and his 2 sons have rushed to hide. The father is killed. The 2 sons are injured and bleeding as a militant pulls them into the living room. One child can be heard screaming to his brother, "Why am I alive? I can't see anything. They're going to kill us."
Who?
The militant casually opens the fridge, takes out a bottle, and drinks. And then there is this recording from kibbutz Mefalsim.
I can't really understand what they're saying. Can't hear it well. So I cannot confirm nor deny. You know, these guys are known for lying and faking shit, so I don't know if that those captions are right.
Absolve Israel of its obligations.
Propaganda, man. I don't know.
But they do enable the court to appreciate 3 core aspects of the present proceedings, which the applicant has obscured from view. First, that if there have been acts that may be characterized as genocidal, then they have been perpetrated against Israel. If there is a concern about the obligations of states under the Genocide Convention, then it is in relation to their responsibilities to act against Hamas's proudly declared agenda of annihilation, which is not a secret and is not in doubt. The annihilationist language of Hamas's charter is repeated regularly by its leaders, with the goal, in the words of one member of Hamas's political bureau, of the cleansing of Palestine of the filth of the Jews. It is expressed no less chillingly in the words of senior Hamas member Razi Hamad to Lebanese television on October 24th, 2023, who refers to the October 7th attacks,
13, man.
what Hamas calls the Al-Aqsa flood,
14.
as follows.
and the occupation, and maybe October 7th would have never happened.
In the continuation of this interview, Hamad is asked, does that mean the annihilation of Israel? Yes, of course, he says. The existence of Israel is illogical. And then he says, nobody should blame us for the things we do. On October 7th, October 10th, October 1 millionth, everything we do is justified. End quote. Given that on October 7th, before any military response by Israel, South Africa issued an official statement blaming Israel for, quote, the recent conflagration, essentially blaming Israel for the murder of its own citizens.
You killed 400 of them.
One wonders whether the applicant agrees. Second, it is in response to the slaughter of October 7th, which Hamas openly vows to repeat, and to the ongoing attacks against it from Gaza, that Israel has the inherent right to take all legitimate measures to defend its citizens and secure the release of the hostages.
Yeah, so kill 12,000 kids.
This right is also not in doubt. It has been acknowledged by states across the world.
Displaced 2 million people.
Astonishingly, the court has been requested to indicate a provisional measure calling on Israel to suspend its military operations.
Yes.
But this amounts to an attempt to deny Israel its ability to meet its obligations to the defense of its citizens.
To kill its Palestinians? Yeah, to kill Palestinians, right?
And to over 110,000 internally displaced Israelis unable
110,000? 2 million in Gaza. Dumb motherfucker. Guy, you?
In its submissions to the court, makes almost no mention of the ongoing humanitarian suffering of Israel's citizens at the hands of Hamas, and treats the hostages still held in captivity as barely an afterthought.
But they said it was amazing. They said it was a good time.
These people on your screen are unworthy of protection.
Bro, the hostages were saying that they okay, that's an IDF. These are IDF soldiers. The one on the top right, I know is. She was dancing as soon as they were bombing Gaza. But I saw this billboard outside in Texas, by the way, as a billboard. It's kind of insane. The hostages that came out, they said they were treated
Hamas
well.
is not a party to these proceedings. The applicant, by its request, seeks to thwart Israel's inherent right to defend itself, to let Hamas not just get away with its murder, literally, but render Israel defenseless as Hamas continues to commit it.
Say it again. Say it again.
Yesterday, counsel for the applicant made the astonishing claim that Israel was denied this right, and as a matter of fact should not be able to protect itself from Hamas's attacks. But allow me to draw attention to these words written by Professor Vaughan Lowe. Quote, the source of the attack, whether a state or non-state actor, is irrelevant to the existence of the right to defense. Force may be used to avert a threat because no one and no state is obliged by law passively to suffer the delivery of an attack. Israel agrees with
you like
these
the
words,
lines?
as I suspect would any sovereign state. If the claim of the applicant now is that in the armed conflict between Israel and Hamas, Israel must be denied the ability to defend its citizens, then the absurd upshot of South Africa's argument is this. Under the guise of the allegation against Israel of genocide, this court is asked to call for an end to operations against the ongoing attacks of an organization that pursues an actual genocidal agenda. An organization that has violated every past ceasefire and used it to rearm and plan new atrocities.
That is actually completely
false. An organization that declares its unequivocal resolve to advance its genocidal plans. That is an unconscionable request, and it is respectfully submitted that it cannot stand.
Blah, blah, blah. Hamas, blah, blah.
The court is informed of the events of October 7th because if there are any provisional measures that should appropriately be indicated here, they are indeed with respect to South Africa.
25.
It is a matter of public record that South Africa enjoys close relations with Hamas, despite its formal recognition as a terrorist organization by numerous states across the world. These relations have continued unabated even after the October 7th atrocities. South Africa has long hosted and celebrated its ties with Hamas figures.
There's 2.
Including a senior Hamas delegation
There's 3
that incredibly visited the country for a, quote, solidarity gathering just weeks after the massacre. In justifying instituting proceedings, South Africa makes much of its obligations under the Genocide Convention. It seems fitting, then, that it be instructed to comply with those obligations itself, to end its own language of delegitimization of Israel's existence, end its support for Hamas, and use its influence with this organization so that Hamas permanently ends its campaign of genocidal terror and releases the hostages. Madam President, members of the court, the hostilities between Israel and Hamas have exacted a terrible toll on both Israelis and Palestinians.
No, because of you.
Any genuine effort to understand the cause of this toll must take account of the horrendous reality created by Hamas within the Gaza Strip. When Israel withdrew all its soldiers and civilians from Gaza
and redeployed them outside of Gaza,
a coastal area
on the borders of Gaza,
to become a political and economic success story.
Shut up.
Hamas's violent takeover in 2007 changed all that.
Violent
Over the
takeover.
past 16 years of its rule, Hamas has smuggled countless weapons into Gaza and has diverted billions in international aid, not to build schools, hospitals, or shelters to protect its population.
We've heard this
from the
bullshit
dangers of the
propaganda
attacks
before, man.
it launched against Israel over many years, but rather to turn massive swaths of the civilian infrastructure into perhaps the most sophisticated terrorist stronghold in the history of urban warfare. Remarkably, counsel for the applicant described the suffering in Gaza as unparalleled and unprecedented, as if they are unaware of the utter devastation wrought in wars that have raged just in recent years around the world.
By Hamas.
Sadly,
No?
the civilian suffering in warfare
It's from
is not
Hamas.
unique to Gaza.
Okay.
What is actually unparalleled and unprecedented is the degree to which Hamas has entrenched itself within the civilian population.
Yeah, when you
and
have a
made
piece of land with 2
Palestinian
million people
suffering
like this.
an integral part of its strategy. Hamas has systematically and unlawfully embedded its military operations, militants and assets throughout Gaza, within and beneath densely populated civilian areas.
Yeah, because
It
you
has
keep
built an
making them
extensive
smaller,
wall of
smaller.
underground tunnels for its leaders and fighters, several hundred miles in length, throughout the Strip, with thousands of access points and terrorist hubs located in homes, mosques, UN facilities, schools, and perhaps most shockingly, hospitals.
And you're only killing innocent
This
people.
is not an occasional tactic. It is an integrated, pre-planned, extensive, and abhorrent method of warfare. Purposely and methodically murdering civilians, firing rockets indiscriminately, systematically using civilians' sensitive sites
What about you?
and civilian objects as shields, stealing and hoarding humanitarian supplies, allowing those under its control to suffer so that it can fuel its fighters and terrorist campaign. The
Hypocritical,
appalling
so
suffering
hypocritical.
of civilians, both Israeli and Palestinian,
Shut up.
is first and foremost the result of this despicable strategy.
This guy is like
horrible
laughable.
cost of Hamas.
Laughable.
Not only failing to protect its civilians, but actively sacrificing them for its own propaganda and military benefit. And if Hamas abandons this strategy, releases the hostages, lays down its arms, the hostilities and suffering would end.
Oh, so you're gonna keep
Madam
bombing them?
President, members of the court, there are many distortions in the applicant's submission to the court,
No.
but as shall be demonstrated by counsel, there is one that overshadows them all.
Which one?
In the applicant's telling, it is almost as if there is no intensive armed conflict taking place between two parties at all. No grave threat to Israel and its citizens. Only an Israeli assault on Gaza. The court is told of widespread damage to buildings, but it is not told, for example, how many thousands of those buildings were destroyed because they were booby-trapped by Hamas. How many became legitimate targets because of the strategy of using civilian objects and protected sites for military purposes? How many buildings were struck by over 2,000 indiscriminate terrorist rockets that misfired and landed in Gaza itself?
That is, those are
The court is
lies.
told of over 23,000 casualties. As the applicant repeats, as many have, unverified statistics provided by Hamas itself.
Okay.
Hardly a reliable source. Every civilian casualty in this conflict is a human tragedy that demands our compassion. But the court is not told how many thousands of casualties are in fact militants. How many were killed by Hamas fire?
How many? Tell me
How
then.
many were civilians taking direct part in hostilities?
Tell me.
And just how many are the result of legitimate and proportionate use of
40?
force against military targets, even if tragic?
How many then? You.
And the court is also told of the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. But it is not told of Hamas's practice of stealing and hoarding aid. It is not told of the extensive Israeli efforts to mitigate civilian harm, of the humanitarian initiatives being undertaken to enable the flow of supplies and provide medical attention.
You're the one that stopped the aid coming in through the Rafah
applicant
border, bro, and every
purports to
border.
describe the reality in Gaza. But it is as if Hamas and its total contempt for civilian life just do not exist as a direct cause of that reality. Hamas is widely estimated to have over 30,000 fighters
Okay.
and is known to bring minors no older than 15 or 16 into its ranks.
So there's 30.
They are coming for us. But in South Africa's telling, they have all but disappeared. There are no explosives in mosques and schools and children's bedrooms, no ambulances used to transport fighters, no tunnels and terrorist hubs under sensitive sites, no fighters dressed as civilians, no commandeering of aid trucks,
Yeah.
no firing
Yeah, there
from
aren't.
civilian homes,
Yeah, there
UN
aren't.
facilities, and even safe zones.
Yeah, there aren't.
There is only Israel acting in Gaza.
Yeah.
The applicant is essentially asking the court
Yeah, okay.
to substitute the lens of armed conflict
Okay, buddy.
between a state and a lawless terrorist organization with the lens of a so-called genocide of a state against a civilian population. But it is not offering the court a lens. It is offering it a blindfold. Madam President, members of the court, the nightmarish environment created by Hamas has been concealed by the applicant, but it is the environment in which Israel is compelled to operate. Israel is committed, as it must be, to comply with the law, but it does so in the face of Hamas's utter contempt for the law.
Hamas is not the
It is
issue.
committed, as it must be, to demonstrate humanity, but it does so in the face of Hamas's utter inhumanity. As will be presented by counsel, these commitments are a matter of express government policy, military directives and procedures.
Say Hamas one more time.
They are also an expression of Israel's core values.
Come on, please, please, one more.
And as shall also be shown, they are matched by genuine measures on the ground
One more.
to mitigate civilian harm under the unprecedented and excruciating conditions of warfare
One more.
created by Hamas.
Yeah.
It is plainly inconceivable under the terms set by this very court
Another
that
one.
a state conducting itself in this way,
Another one.
in these circumstances,
Another one.
may be said to be engaged in genocide,
Another one. Another
not
one.
even prima facie.
Another one. Come on.
The key component of genocide, the intention to destroy a people in whole or in part, is totally lacking. What Israel seeks by operating in Gaza is not to destroy a people, but to protect a people,
Okay, sure.
its people,
Yeah.
who are under attack on multiple fronts.
Yeah, is that why you killed 3 of your own
And to do
hostages?
so
Yeah,
in
yeah,
accordance with the law, even as it faces a heartless enemy,
yeah.
determined to use that very commitment
Yeah,
against it.
yeah.
As will be detailed by Council, Israel's lawful aims in Gaza have been clearly and repeatedly articulated by its Prime Minister, its Defense Minister, and all members of the War Cabinet. As the Prime Minister reiterated yet again this week, Israel is fighting Hamas terrorists, not the civilian population.
But you killed 30,000 innocent
Israel
people.
aims to ensure that Gaza can never again be used as a launch pad for terrorism. As the Prime Minister reaffirms, Israel seeks neither to permanently occupy Gaza or to displace its civilian population. It wants to create a better future.
Did
for
they
Israelis
say it
and
again? Did I miss
Palestinians
another
alike,
one? Did I miss another one?
where both can live in peace, thrive, and prosper.
Then end the
And where
occupation
the Palestinian
now.
people have all the power to govern themselves, but not the capacity to threaten Israel. If there is a threat to that vision, if there is a humanitarian threat to the Palestinian civilians of Gaza, it stems primarily from the fact that they have lived under the control of a genocidal terrorist organization that has total disregard for their life and well-being.
Yalla, one more time.
That organization, Hamas,
Their
and its sponsors seek to deny Israel,
sponsors? What? They're like a YouTube
and
channel?
Arab states across the region the ability to advance a common future of peace, coexistence,
G Fuel sponsor.
security, and prosperity. Israel is in a war of defense against Hamas, not against the Palestinian people,
What the
to ensure that they do not succeed.
What happened here?
In these circumstances,
Guys, what is happening?
there can hardly be a charge
Israel
more
did this,
false
they're not letting me
and
count.
more malevolent than the allegation against Israel of genocide. The applicant has regrettably engaged in a transparent attempt to abuse the Convention's compulsory jurisdiction mechanism, and in particular, the provisional measures phase of proceedings, to bring under the purview of the court matters over which, in truth, it lacks jurisdiction. Madam President, members of the court, the Genocide Convention was a solemn promise
I think Madame
to the
President
Jewish
has a
people
brain, unlike you.
and to all peoples of never again. The applicant
Never
in
again for
effect,
anyone, including
invites the
Palestinians.
court to betray that promise. If the term genocide can be so diminished in the way that it advocates, if provisional measures can be triggered in the way that it suggests, the Convention becomes an aggressor's charter. It will reward, indeed encourage, the terrorists who hide behind civilians at the expense of the states seeking to defend against them.
Blah,
To
blah, blah.
maintain the integrity of the Genocide Convention, to maintain its promise, and the court's own role as its guardian, it is respectfully submitted that the application and request should be dismissed for what they are, a libel designed to deny Israel the right to defend itself according to the law from the unprecedented
Yep.
terrorist onslaught it
Killed
continues to
12,000
face,
kids. Yep.
and to free the 136 hostages.
Yep, you're bombing them, by the way. They're in
Still
Gaza,
holds.
right? You're bombing Gaza. They're
I
there.
thank you for your kind attention. May I ask, Madam President, that you call Professor Shaw to the podium.
Thank the
Boo!
co-agent of Israel for his statement, and
Boo!
I now invite Professor Malcolm Shah.
Boo! 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 Oh, boo! Boo! All you spat were lies, you little shit. Boo! By the way, guys, on TikTok, I'm live on YouTube because I'm doing a Hamas counter that they probably don't like that TikTok, so I'm live on YouTube. They're probably gonna remove me. Link is in the bio. Click it real quick. Hamza Saad on YouTube. Yalla, what do you have to say?
Madam President and members of the court,
I'm surprised the first word wasn't
it is
Hamas.
a great honour to appear before you again and a privilege to appear on behalf of the State of Israel.
Boo!
It
Boo!
is my task today to address the issues falling within the general categories of prima facie jurisdiction and the preservation of alleged rights sought to be protected. However, I would like first to make a preliminary comment about the key question of context. It constitutes the framework for the consideration of this request for the grant of provisional measures.
Blah, blah, blah.
South Africa casts its net widely. In its application, it uses the word context many times.
How much they paying you, bro?
In particular, it declares that it is important to place the acts of genocide in the broader context of Israel's conduct towards the Palestinians during its 75-year-long apartheid.
Ah, so it
Leaving
is.
aside
Good.
the outrageous nature of that statement, why stop at 75 years? Why not refer to 1922 and the approval by the Council of the League of Nations of the British Mandate? Or 1917, the proclamation of the Balfour Declaration?
What about it?
Maybe also include the entry into the land of Israel of the Israelite tribes some 3,500 years ago.
That's 3,500 years ago. We're talking about
The
people living
immediate
in
and
Palestine before
proximate
1948,
context for the
750,000 of which
specific
were
allegations of genocide
displaced.
claimed by South Africa lies in the events of the 7th of October.
Rentalawyer.com.
Hamas militants and other armed groups and individuals stormed into the internationally recognized sovereign territory of Israel and committed acts of barely credible atrocity. It was these events that truly constitute the real context for South Africa's allegations. Indeed, such acts may be seen as the real genocide
He said Hamas?
in this situation.
Did he?
As the President of the European Commission put it on the 19th of October, there was no limit to the blood Hamas terrorists wanted to spill. They went home by home. They burned people alive. They
No, they didn't.
mutilated children and even babies.
No,
Why?
no babies.
Because they were Jews.
No, that's
Because
not
they
why.
were living in the state of Israel.
No, that's not why.
Hamas's explicit goal is to eradicate Jewish life from the Holy Land. These terrorists, supported by their friends in Tehran, will never stop. And so Israel has the right to defend itself in line with humanitarian law.
Show me proof of the babies being burned and beheaded and the
These
raped.
atrocities do
The
not
woman raped.
justify
Show me.
violations of the law.
You
In
lying
reply,
son of a mother shit.
still less genocide. But they do justify, mandate even, the exercise of the legitimate and inherent right of a state to defend itself, as enshrined in the UN Charter and under customary international law.
Blah, blah, blah.
To put an end to the continuing attacks against it and to prevent them from succeeding. A threat that has been made explicitly by Hamas and repeated, and it is thus real and imminent. This context is critical, for it shows that the true nature of the situation as it has unfolded, particularly the 7th of October, is that of an armed conflict. A heavily armed militia and its allies precipitated egregious hostilities, and the consequences lie everywhere. The point is this: armed conflict, even when fully justified and conducted lawfully, is brutal and costs lives, particularly when the militia in question specifically targets civilians and civilian facilities, and when it is patently unconcerned about causing civilian casualties on its own side. The conflict is also regulated by law. The rules and principles.
You talking about Israel?
Humanitarian law.
Israel targeting civilians? Because that's what's happening.
The Geneva Conventions of 1949 and customarily international law. These are well developed and applicable and are fully respected by Israel.
No, they're not. They're not being followed a single bit
Such
by you
rules
guys.
cover permitted activities under international humanitarian law, where civilian damage and loss, always to be regretted, are caused in the legitimate pursuit of military objectives through to the violation of the law, being grave breaches of the Geneva Conventions and up to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
Speak about the
However,
occupation.
the
What the hell?
only category before this court is genocide. Not every conflict is genocidal. The crime of genocide in international law and under the Genocide Convention in international law is a uniquely malicious manifestation. It stands alone amongst the violations of international law as the epitome and zenith of evil. It has been described correctly as the crime of crimes, the ultimate in wickedness.
Blah, blah, blah.
Indeed, the court itself emphasised in its order of the 2nd of June 1999
Stop yapping,
that
man.
the threat
Just
or
admit
use
it.
of force cannot in itself constitute an act of genocide within the meaning of Article 2 of the Geneva Convention.
Oh, this guy doesn't like Hamas. He doesn't
and
want to say
particularly
it.
instant bombing.
Say Hamas,
as
man.
lacking the element of intent. in
The other guy fucking
circumstances.
loved Hamas. Look at that shit.
To put it another way, if claims of genocide were to become the common currency of armed conflict, whenever and wherever that occurred, the essence of this crime would be diluted and lost.
Blah, blah.
I turn now to the question of the prima facie jurisdiction of the court in the matter before us. Article 9 of the Genocide Convention, to which both states are parties without reservation, makes the court's jurisdiction conditional on the existence of a dispute relating to the interpretation, application, or fulfilment of the Convention. And the relevant date for determining the existence of such a dispute is the date on which the application is submitted to the court. Whether or not a dispute in these terms exists at the time of the filing of the application is a matter for objective determination by the court. It is a matter of substance and not a question of form or procedure. The court will take into account, in particular, any statements or documents exchanged between the parties, as well as any exchanges made in multilateral settings, the court has said. The key point here is the use of the term exchange between the parties.
Exchange.
Unilateral assertion does not suffice. There needs to be some element of engagement between the parties. The element of interchange and bilateral interaction is required. A dispute is a reciprocal phenomenon. This point has been consistently noted by the court. For example, the court reaffirmed in the Myanmar case the view that it had expressed earlier that in order for a dispute in the sense of Article 9 to exist, it must be shown that the claim of one party is positively opposed by the other. The court further referred in the Marshall Islands cases to the need that the respondent should.
I'm getting my high score, guys. No, I lost.
Before the institution of proceedings to the claim may be made against its own conduct. Where a state makes
I can't watch this, bro.
concerning the conduct of another state,
I can't watch this.
it must thus give the latter a reasonable opportunity to respond before resorting to litigation, particularly in a matter of such severity as an accusation of genocide, and particularly before a court of this standing. And it behoves that state to provide supporting evidence of some credibility. Here, South Africa cites only a couple of general public statements by Israel referencing merely a press report by Reuters and a publicity release from the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. These responses were not addressed directly or even indirectly to South Africa. There is no evidence of positive opposition as required by the court. Further, South Africa cites no relevant exchange between the parties, which would be the normal fashion for the expression and determination of a dispute between states. This actually typifies how South Africa has approached this matter. It seems to believe that it does not take two to tango. It is sufficient if one state determines there is a dispute, leaving the other party flummoxed. Professor Dugard explains that South Africa had voiced its concerns in the Security Council and in public statements and had further referred the matter to the International Criminal Court. At that point, he says, it became clear there was a serious dispute between the two states. The court has emphasised that in the case of statements made by one state,
I can't
in a
take this guy serious,
forum,
bro.
the court must give particular attention, inter alia, to the content of a party statement and to the identity of the intended addressees in order to determine whether that statement, together with any reaction thereto, show that the
judge was
before
sleeping?
it held clearly opposite views. South Africa's actions were insufficient. Indeed, in the Marshall Islands cases, the court, referring specifically to a statement made at a conference, noted that it did not call for a specific reaction by the UK, and thus no opposition of views can be inferred from the absence of any such reaction. Specific reaction. It is thus disingenuous for Professor Dugard to conclude that Israel must have been aware from South Africa's public statements, démarche and referral to the ICC of Israel's genocidal acts, that a dispute existed between the two states. This is not a dispute, it is a unispute, a one-sided clapping of hands. Professor Dugard perhaps tries to retrieve the situation by declaring that special considerations apply to the existence of disputes concerning Article 9, without telling us what those conditions could possibly be. We come now to the rather bizarre story of the exchange of note verbal. Professor Dugard would have us believe that such exchanges are merely a matter of courtesy of little real consequence. This is not the normal understanding of such notes and their importance in international relations, but he says this for a reason, as we shall see. South Africa instituted proceedings against Israel on the 29th of December. In its long recital, the application notes that on the 21st of December, South Africa sent a note verbal to Israel raising its concerns about genocide in Gaza. The application further states that Israel has not responded directly to South Africa's note verbal. This is incorrect. Israel did indeed respond that very day.
Can you stop talking?
Informing South Africa that the note verbal has been forwarded to Capital and that a response is expected shortly. South Africa confirmed the next day that it had received the message. On the 26th of December, the Director General of Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs proposed to his counterpart in the Department of International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa by text to schedule a meeting at his earliest convenience in order to discuss the issues raised.
Blah, 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 blah,
On the
blah.
27th of December, the embassy sent to South Africa by email a note verbal suggesting a meeting of respective Directors General at the earliest convenience in order to discuss the issues raised. An attempt by the embassy to hand-deliver the note was refused due to a national holiday, and the South African Department of International Relations specifically advised the embassy on the 28th of December to hand-deliver the note on the 2nd of January. The application was instituted on the 29th of December. This was an attempt by the State of Israel, in good faith, to open a dialogue and discuss South Africa's concerns. However, not only was this ignored at the relevant time, but South Africa proceeded to institute proceedings the following day.
You know, they said, for every letter you write, you get $1.
Note verbal.
Which was 5 million words.
Not the case. Perhaps realizing the effect of this, South Africa, with some haste, sent a note verbal on the 4th of January, which essentially just repeated the content of the note of the 21st of December. But it explained the following day in a letter to the registrar that the Israeli note had not been received by the appropriate team. Israel has proof of receipt.
Show the proof.
It also stated that the dispute is plainly not capable of resolution by way of a bilateral meeting. Nevertheless, it suggested to hold a meeting the next morning. Israel replied the next morning, expressing surprise that South Africa had instituted proceedings without taking up a sincerely made offer to hold consultations, and conveying its wish for discussions to be held following the close of these oral hearings. South Africa, in a note dated the 10th of January,
That's what he said.
Curious indeed.
Sorry, I'm just tired of this.
That a dispute existed, irrespective of Israel's conciliatory and friendly response since repeated. Perhaps had South Africa taken up this offer, at the time proffered as a result of its own note.
Please fast forward. This is live. I can't fast forward.
No dispute as such to place before the court under the Genocide Convention, and that South Africa's expressed concerns over the genocide allegation would have been assuaged. We may never know. South Africa's precipitate institution of proceedings foreclosed that option. It's a point worth underlining. South Africa did not give Israel a reasonable opportunity to engage with it on the matters under consideration before filing its, no doubt, long-prepared application.
But Hamas...
But South Africa, at the very last moment, suddenly realized that it needed to show the existence of a dispute under the terms of the Genocide Convention, and proceeded to hastily formulate and dispatch a flurry of notes. The court can grant orders for provisional measures only where the provisions relied upon by the applicant appear prima facie to afford a basis on which its jurisdiction could be founded, although it need not satisfy in itself in a definitive manner that it has jurisdiction as regards the merits of the case. It's not an easy matter to determine whether a prima facie case exists. It rests between full proof and complete absence of proof, and is intended to ensure that the court functions effectively and efficiently. But there has to be something tangible in terms of the provisions.
Snipe, thank you for the galaxy on TikTok.
The provisional measures procedure is a complex instrument in that the court has to decide upon the basis of certain assumptions which may or may not be disproved at a later stage of the proceedings. This is particularly difficult in such an egregious matter as an allegation of genocide.
Bro.
Were understood by the...
Like, what's he's just saying words. Like, he's not even talking. He's actually not even talking. He's just That is literally... What's happening?
Okay. Well, the standard of proof At the marriage
He's
stage,
laughing. He knows what he's saying is fucking
the
stupid.
court
He's
having made
laughing.
it clear
He's
that
laughing.
claims against a state
He's laughing.
involving
Did he hear
charges of
me?
exceptional gravity
He's fucking
is
laughing.
proved by evidence
He's
that
fucking
is
laughing.
fully conclusive. That is not the case, of course, of the provisional measures.
He knows how stupid this is.
But it's also not negligible. The court is asked to grant, in this case, a number of measures that in effect assume that the party in question is committing genocide. As Mr. Staker will show later this morning, mud is thrown at a stage before conclusive proof, and it may stick even if the accusation is comprehensively disproved at the merits phase, as we expect. A serious political and security price may be paid by the grantee of such measures, even though it may later be shown to be completely unwarranted. This must surely require that the court acts with caution and understanding.
What are you
particularly in
saying?
evaluating the components.
The
of
component
allegation in
on the
law.
allegation of the law of the genocidal convention.
Provisional
What are you
measures
fucking
are
saying?
intended to constitute a shield
What
and
are you
not a
saying?
sword, to preserve, not undermine rights. We have shown that one element of Article 9, that of the need to demonstrate the existence of a dispute, as understood by the court in the light of its case law, is lacking. The second element concerns the question as to whether the act complained of by the applicant can be seen as falling within the provisions of the Convention. The court has noted that only at the merit stage can it be determined whether the provisions in question of the Convention have been violated. To accomplish this, the necessary specific intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial or religious group as such.
I feel like one of the next guys is going to be like, Hamas, 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 Hamas. And then this is going to get
This
filled up.
cannot be read as a complete rejection of consideration of the intent criterion for current purposes.
Snipe, thank you.
The court in the Myanmar case noted that a finding of violations at the merit stage notably depends on the existence of intent, notably, not exclusively. Myanmar is not a ruling that intent is irrelevant in a consideration of prima facie jurisdiction. It is a ruling that in conclusion as to whether or not violations have actually occurred is a matter for the merits which notably depends on an assessment of intent. This clearly leaves open the possibility that intent is indeed a factor in determining prima facie jurisdiction in provisional measures proceedings. This also comports with the logic of the situation. The Act's elements of the definition of genocide are listed in Article 2, and for present purposes there is no need to go through them. The issue is this. What determines the existence of the crime of genocide is the intention to destroy, in whole or in part, a particular group as such.
As what's happening in Gaza now.
Genocide from other international law crimes, such as war crimes or crimes against humanity.
Oh, yeah, just war crimes.
Consider the act alone, as listed in Article 2, with no reference at all to the intent criterion, is thus to denude the crime of its very essence. Hamlet without the prince, a car without an engine. We are at the provisional measures phase of this case. South Africa does not have to prove that genocidal acts have been or are being committed, but it does have to show that the Genocide Convention is in play. After all, this court has no jurisdiction to consider any other alleged crimes, however serious. We are only concerned with genocide. It is indeed a difficult balance for the court.
He got the ChatGPT premium.
Stated that what is required at this stage is to establish whether the acts complained of are capable of falling within the provisions of the Genocide Convention. But the acts complained of may only be capable of falling within the provisions of the Genocide Convention if the intent is present.
Mute your phones, guys. Come on.
constitute genocide. The factor intent colours the whole question of Article 2 acts. In other words, that there is prima facie evidence that the acts that may fall within the Convention, necessarily importing the intent element, have been established as such. South Africa accepts the need to demonstrate intent. It referred to the concept of specific intent in its application, both generally and in the specific context of its discussion of the Court's prima facie jurisdiction in provisional measures proceedings.
I think.
Indeed, South Africa placed a considerable.
Listen, I think what's happening right now. The reason they got him to do this number, the second guy, is so the viewers leave and no one pays attention to this whole court hearing thing. That's my guess. Is that he's just so people just leave and no one is hearing this. No one, you know what I'm saying?
On random
To get the attention off of them.
That Israel has.
But we're not fucking leaving, you little tit.
Specific intent
We're staying right here.
In whole or in part, the Palestinian people as such. The intention faced with the 7th of October atrocities and the continuing rocket fire and incarceration of the hostages on the part of Israel to act in order to defend itself so as to terminate the threats against it and rescue the hostages certainly exists. The intent to deal with the armed militants of Hamas and other such groups is undeniable. Were it the case, which we deny, that Israeli forces have transgressed some of the rules of conduct, then the matter will be tackled at the appropriate time by Israel's robust and independent legal system. But that is not the intent to destroy all or part of a people as such. Israel's actions in restricting its targeting practices to attack military personnel or objectives in accordance with international humanitarian law in a proportionate manner in each case, as well as its practice of mitigating civilian harm, such as by forewarning civilians of impending action by the unprecedented and extensive use of telephone calls, leafleting, and so forth.
You said it again?
Coupled with the facilitation of humanitarian assistance, all demonstrate the precise opposite of any possible genocidal intent. South Africa, in seeking to discover the necessary intent, presents a distorted picture. It misunderstands the nature and provenance of certain comments made by some Israeli politicians. Let me try and explain the big picture.
30,000 Palestinians have been killed in the past 3 months.
Israel possesses a clear...
That's the big picture.
Excuse me. A clear and effective structure of authority with regard to governmental decision. The war against Hamas is managed on behalf of the government by two central organs.
Is he like signing something to someone?
The Committee on National Security Affairs and the War...
Shut up!
Excuse me.
What the fuck is happening? Oh God! Oh, you are not excused, you little shit. You're not excused.
The latter established for the purpose of managing the war by the former. These bodies make the relevant decisions regarding the war's conduct.
Oh
and
man!
According to Israeli law, the decisions of the government and its committees obligate the ministers of the government in accordance with the principle of collective responsibility. It is the collective decisions of these bodies
Free Palestine.
which are the binding provisions
Free
in
Palestine.
question.
Free Palestine.
The Prime Minister stands at the head of these organs, decides on the agenda of their meetings, steers their activity, and summarises the meetings and the instructions issued therein. In order to determine the policy and intentions of the government of Israel, it is necessary to examine the decisions of the Ministerial Committee on National Security Affairs and the War Cabinet, and to examine whether the particular comments expressed conform or not with the policies and decisions made. Thus, to produce random quotes that are not in conformity with government policy, produced as describing is misleading at best.
Can you just shut up?
Such as the statement by the Minister of Heritage, for example, who is completely outside the policy and decision-making process in the war. In any event, his statement was immediately...
To people saying, oh, he's owning Palestine. Like, you don't even know what the fuck he's saying. He's just saying, genocide. No, genocide. Like, come on. That's nothing. He's not saying anything. What's he fucking saying? He's not saying anything.
Cabinet decisions
to translate for me,
Israel's
please.
Intent throughout this war. For example, one finds the instructions from the Prime Minister in a meeting of the Ministerial Committee on National Security Affairs from the 29th of October, stating the following. One. The Prime Minister stated time and again, we must prevent a humanitarian disaster. Two.
Okay, so why are you bumming
the
them?
Prime Minister indicated the possible sorts of solutions that will ensure required supply of water, food and medicine.
So why you cut them off?
Increasing the amount of trucks entering with the necessary.
So why you stop them letting them go in? Why you stop them going in?
Promoting the construction of field hospitals in the south of the Gaza Strip to re-emphasize.
Why are you bombing the hospitals
this
then?
This is a directive to authorities. Nothing less. Tab 1A contains a considerable number of similar directives, emphasizing the need to avoid harm to civilians and facilitate humanitarian aid. Genocidal intent? Let me turn to the IDF. This, like every army, is a hierarchical body that operates by way of orders from superiors and is headed by the Chief of the General Staff. Remarks or actions of a soldier do not and cannot reflect policy. In tab 1B, one may find a daily operational directive, which I understand is repeated day by day, issued by the Operations Directorate of the IDF, stating that attacks will be solely directed towards military targets while adhering to the principles of distinction, proportionality, and the obligation taking precautions in attacks in order to reduce collateral damage.
But you killing 30,000 people.
This is a directive that binds all IDF forces. It continues by stating that the laws of armed conflict allow destruction to civilian property only when there is a military necessity to do so, and prohibit harm to property for deterrence purposes only, or for the purpose of punishment, individual or collective.
And this guy just stop talking.
It is necessary to treat enemy civilians with respect. They should not be treated in a humiliating manner, and civilians should not be used for the purpose of performing activities that might put them under risk to their life or their body. This is a mandatory instruction, effective since the start of the war. Tab 1B contains many similar provisions, which are themselves only an illustration of many other such directives, orders and procedures. The Prime Minister publicly declared that the IDF is doing everything.
Lies after lies after lies after lies.
But on the 18th of November, he declared that, first of all, and above all else, Israel acts according to the laws of war. This is how our army works.
Which one of them was sleeping earlier?
The Minister of Defense publicly stated it on the 29th of October that we are not fighting the Palestinian multitude and the Palestinian people
all of them?
Gaza, and declared on the 13th of November that our war is against the Hamas terrorist organization, not the people of Gaza.
Then stop killing them, you fucking
The
stupid
President of
ass
Israel
bitch.
declared on the 12th
Come on, man.
of October
You're so,
that we are
so
working,
stupid.
operating militarily
You're so
according
stupid.
to rules of international law.
You're
Period.
so stupid.
Unequivocally. We have collated numerous such statements by the President, by the
Oh
Prime
my
Minister, by
God.
the Minister of Defence, by the IDF spokesperson and others in tab 2 of our volume. Since this is such a critical part of South Africa's thesis, permit me to refer to 2 further statements by the Prime Minister. I start with the most recent, 10th of January. Israel has no intention of permanently occupying Gaza or displacing its civilian population.
Permanently occupied.
Israel is fighting
Fucking
Hamas terrorists, not the Palestinians.
Not permanently, not permanently. Maybe
Doing
30
so
years,
in
75 years, you know.
compliance with international
Shut
law.
up, bro.
The IDF
Shut
is
up.
doing its utmost to minimize civilian casualties, while Hamas is doing its utmost to maximize them by using Palestinian civilians as human shields.
Human shield.
IDF
Human
urges
shield.
Palestinian
Yeah, okay.
civilians to leave war zones by disseminating
man.
leaflets, making phone calls, providing safe passage corridors, while Hamas prevents Palestinians from leaving at gunpoint.
He said another
and
one?
often with gunfire.
Oh, he said another
Our
one right
goal
there
is
too.
to
I think.
rid Gaza of Hamas terrorists and free our hostages. Once this is achieved, Gaza can be demilitarized and de-radicalized, thereby creating a possibility for a better future for Israel and Palestinians alike.
Israel and
On
Palestinians.
23rd of November,
Not Palestine.
Prime Minister Netanyahu declared that any civilian death is a tragedy, anyone. And to avoid them, what you do is first you try and get the civilian out of harm's way. And that's exactly what we did.
No, that's not what you
There are
did.
many
You bombed the
more of the same.
you bombed the place. You told them
Any
to evacuate
careful
to.
review
Dumb
of
guy,
the
you.
official and binding policy decisions made by the
Mr.
relevant
Hamas.
authorities in Israel since the outbreak of the war clearly evidence that such decisions
Someone said I missed
lack
3, so-
any genocidal intent. The contrary is true. They are indicative of the consistent and relentless commitment of Israeli relevant authorities to mitigate civilian harm and alleviate civilian suffering in Gaza. Some of the comments to which South Africa refers are clearly rhetorical, made in the immediate aftermath of an event which severely traumatized Israel, but which cannot be seen as demanding genocide. They express anguish and the necessity to restore control over Israel's own territory under severe threat and safety to its citizens.
Bro, just stop talking.
As Judge Tomka has noted, sometimes statements are made which are nothing more than a part of the recent wartime rhetoric, intending to put the blame and shame on the other side. Not to be totally ignored, but not to be ascribed an importance which belies how and when
Lies,
they
lies,
were
lies,
made,
lies,
nor of
lies.
legal significance.
His,
Let me refer
yeah,
to
his body's
one
like,
further
stop
matter,
talking,
some
please.
biblical moment.
We're gonna have to clog your throat again. Stop.
The applicant
Stop
referred
talking.
time and again to 2 statements by the Israeli Prime Minister where he said, "Remember what Amalek did to you," and attached great importance to it as part of the argument that Israel has
Holy shit!
demonstrated.
Is he still going?
its
Is it? Am I
genocidal
tripping?
intent.
Am I
There
like?
is no need here for a theological discussion on the meaning.
You know
of
what? You know
Amalek
what?
in
I didn't really like the coffee break yesterday, but I need that coffee break right now. Actually, please.
to the Prime
Please.
Minister's statement of the 28th
Please.
of October, which was partially and misleadingly quoted
Please,
yesterday.
man.
He said, "We are now entering the second phase of the war, which its objectives are clear: destruction of the military and governmental capabilities of Hamas, and the return of the hostages back home. In the last couple of days, I have met with our soldiers in the bases, in the field, in the north and in the south.
It's not about the
Remember
hostages.
what Amalek has done to you.
It's not about the hostages. You killed 3 of your own hostages. Point blank. They were shirtless holding an emergency sign, an SOS sign, a white flag saying that they are innocent people. Let alone they were your hostages and they did not look Palestinian and you killed 3 of them point blank. You shot them. Israel military shot them. Talk about that, you little shit. Talk about the Israeli hostages that are being bombed in Gaza that are with Hamas captivity. Okay, talk about that.
Policy.
How are you going to bring back the hostages that are being bombed right now? Stop the bombing and maybe your hostages will come out alive. You're bombing your own people.
Of course. I turn to the next issue.
Dumb guy.
As the court has noted, its power to grant provisional measures has its object the preservation of the respective rights claimed by the parties in a case pending its decision on the merits. At the provisional measures stage, the court does not need to determine that such rights do actually exist in a definitive manner, but it must establish that such rights are plausible. South Africa yesterday dealt with this rather lightly. We can safely say that plausibility is an elusive concept. Simply declaring that claimed rights are plausible is insufficient. The issue was addressed by Judge Greenwood in the border area case when he emphasised that what is required is something more than assertion but less than proof. In other words, the party must show that there is at least a reasonable possibility that the right it claims exists as a matter of law and will be adjudged to apply to that party's.
I'm going to change Hamas to a cough counter.
Of a reasonable prospect of success.
Might as well,
what is
right?
clear is that the court has sought to tie plausibility to particular treaty provisions or to general rules of international law. The court has also considered claims of fact in this context as well as law, such as the finding as to whether Equatorial Guinea plausibly used the building at 42 Avenue Foch for diplomatic purposes. In this case, the court did not limit itself to considering whether the applicant plausibly held the rights in question under international law, but extended the field of inquiry to include consideration as to whether it was plausible that the respondent had breached the rights in question. This approach appears also in Ukraine and Russia, where the court concluded that, on the basis of the evidence presented by the parties, it appears that some of the acts complained of by Ukraine fulfill this condition of plausibility. In other words,
trying to hit your essay word count or something, bro?
Consider
what's going on?
The question of the plausibility of rights,
Yeah, with paper in my hand.
someone has shuffled my papers.
Someone has shuffled? Yeah. Hamas did it. Someone has shuffled my papers. Do you see how he just blames someone for that? What the fuck?
Right. But also the question of the possible breach of such rights. The power of the court to indicate provisional measures and Article 41 of the statute.
Yeah. Okay, buddy. Okay.
Object. Yes, someone thought that my speech was a pack of cards. Indeed,
Shut up, bro.
Case, my apologies. The court was prepared to examine evidence as to the existence of asserted rights
Jesus,
and whether,
dude.
as a matter of fact, the violations had plausibly happened. The final point to be made in this section of my pleading is simply to underline the obvious point that the court needs to consider the relevant respective rights of both parties, the respondent as well as the applicant. Article 41 provides that the purpose of the provisional measures is to preserve the rights of either party. I would note the court's order of the 16th of March 2022 in Ukraine, Russia, stating that the power of the court to indicate provisional measures has as its object the preservation of the respective rights claimed by the parties. And further quote the comment in the Myanmar case that the function of provisional measures is to protect the respective rights of either party pending its final decision. This mutual protection or balancing
Did he say Hamas?
criterion in the light of the rights of both parties is intended to prevent either party being placed in a situation of disadvantage and to ensure that irreparable prejudice will not be caused to either party. I will look briefly at the relevant rights of both parties here.
Yeah, which page? Find the page.
As regards the applicant, I make three simple and brief points.
You wouldn't have lost your papers if you didn't
South
fucking have
Africa has
it. So many.
A confusing and a partial recital of the facts. This will be discussed later this morning by Ms. Rajwan. Secondly, that the appropriate legal framework for this tragic situation is that of international humanitarian law. Thirdly, that Israel's efforts both to mitigate harm when conducting operations,
I want to see
as well
so
as its
many memes of
efforts
this
to
guy, bro.
alleviate
Please.
suffering through humanitarian activities, have gone relatively unnoticed and dispel, or at the very least mitigate, against any allegation of genocidal intent.
I need to see memes, bro.
As from Israel's withdrawal of its civilian and military presence from Gaza in 2005, which brought an end to its belligerent occupation,
No.
and the violent coming to power of Hamas in
There's an indirect
2007,
occupation with
a
the troops
situation
being
of
redeployed to the
conflict
borders.
has existed, with Hamas firing rockets as Israeli
Oh,
tanks
I heard like
and
Hamas
villages
4 times, by the way.
unceasingly. However, the attack on Israel on the 7th of October was qualitatively different from all that went before. The truth is that if there has been any genocidal activity in this situation, it was the events
Oh, twice? Okay.
of 7th of October.
We won't count the next two.
Acts and intent can and have been adequately demonstrated. But Hamas, recognized as a terrorist
That's
group,
one.
at least 41 states, including the US, the UK, all members of the EU, Canada, Australia, Saudi Arabia, Japan and Colombia, is not before the court. Only South Africa, a third party that is not involved in the armed conflict, appears. Nevertheless, as South Africa has pointed out, complicity in genocide is in play. States that supported, condoned, praised or glorified the events of the 7th of October, both at the time and later, stand guilty of a violation of Article 3E of the Convention as being complicit in genocide.
What's his point?
And indeed of the duty to prevent genocide under Article 1. And as the agent has pointed out, South Africa has given succor and support to Hamas, at the least.
There's the second one, the fourth one I wrote.
Clearly of relevance to a discussion of the situation is the facilitation of humanitarian assistance, something that hardly sits well with accusations of genocidal intent. As my colleagues will demonstrate, Israel's activities in this area need to be addressed and not swept aside, as South Africa seeks to do.
Oh my God.
Prime amongst the rights.
Yeah, there goes his. He's starting his next chapter, next book,
actually.
actually.
Evaluation of the situation is the inherent right of any state to defend itself, embedded in customary international law and enshrined in the UN Charter. This right, afforded to states, reaffirms and underlines the responsibility of all states towards their citizens and marks the acceptance by the international community of the political reality and legal confirmation that states, when attacked, may legitimately respond in a forceful and proportionate manner.
That's not proportionate
Professor
at all.
Lowe yesterday
He's on his
sought to
phone. Look at.
maintain
He's like,
that
these guys are
Israel
fucking
has
boring.
the right to self-defense
I
in
agree
this
with you.
situation.
I agree with you. Please stay
How
on your phone,
could
man.
anyone possibly
Holy
argue
shit. These
that
guys are
Israel
annoying. These
could
guys are boring.
not defend itself faced with the 7th of October atrocities and the incessant attacks against its civilians since? Indeed, a very wide range of states has acknowledged the right of self-defense here, ranging from the UK to the US, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, Japan, Ghana and Guatemala, and others.
Is this the last page?
Israel bears the responsibility to exercise its protection over its citizens.
Last page?
Not only
Please.
those constantly subjected to bombardment from Gaza, but also and critically with regard to those captured and held hostage as a result of the 7th of October outrage. These rights exist and cannot be disregarded. Of course, Israel does not have any right to violate the law, still less to commit genocide, and indeed it does not. But it does have every right to act to defend itself in accordance with the rules and principles of international law.
Defending yourself is not killing 12,000 kids, buddy.
A link has to be established between the rights asserted and the provisional measures requested, and this issue will be addressed by Mr. Staker. And he will show that the measures proposed go far beyond the protection of the rights asserted. Madam President, members of the Court, this is an important case. Allegations have been made which verge on the outrageous.
Is he done?
The attack by Hamas on 7th of October,
oh my God,
with its deliberate commission,
oh my God, please,
clearly falls within the statutory definition of genocide. Israel's response was and remains legitimate and necessary.
No.
It acted
boo, boo, boo.
in a manner consistent with international law. It does so not in an unrestrained
He's not shaking
manner,
anymore. Look at him.
but in investing
the first guy.
efforts in mitigating civilian harm at a cost to its operations, as well as alleviating hardship and suffering with investment of resources and efforts. There is no genocidal intent here. This is no genocide. South Africa tells us only half
This
the
is
story.
genocide.
Israel is guilty of genocide. We cannot deal with Hamas. Only Israel must be stopped from protecting its citizenry and eliminating the egregious threat that is Hamas. We cannot deal with Hamas. Meanwhile, we must bind the arms of the State of Israel.
Bro.
Hamas is for some other body. I conclude. First, the core of genocide is intent.
I thought you
Without
concluded.
intent, there can be no genocide in law. It is true for the merits. It is equally true for provisional measures. Any prima facie consideration, indeed, of intent, even at this preliminary stage, will only demonstrate its absence from Israel's activities.
One more?
Second,
One more?
there is here no dispute under the Genocide Convention as at the time of submission of the application, as alleged by South Africa and as required for prima facie jurisdiction. Indeed,
oh my
South
God,
Africa's own precipitate activities with notes
he's still going, bro.
Demonstrates the lack of its confidence in this respect, and that is telling.
Oh my God.
Thirdly, the rights to be protected in the provisional measures procedure cover not just the applicant, but also the respondent, and chief amongst these rights is that of the right and obligation to act to defend itself and its citizens. This must be considered and weighed by the court as against the false accusations levelled at Israel.
Yeah, this guy's a millionaire, bro.
Madam President, members of the court, thank you for your kind attention. I would ask you to call Madame Rajoan at your convenience.
Thank you, Professor Shaw.
Oh!
The court will observe a coffee break for 10 minutes. The sitting is adjourned.
A coffee break of 10 minutes, yeah. Same, bro, same. Alhamdulillah, bro, alhamdulillah. Yo, that's what we needed. We needed that to end. We need a coffee break now. Oh, if the rest are like that, bro, I hope not. Please, please no. I'm gonna be here until tomorrow. Please. Oh, that was annoying. That was oh man. W's in the chat though. He's done. Okay, but booze in the chat as well for the guy. Booze in the chat for the guy. Boo. Got Chat GBT Premium. Please, if you are a meme account on Twitter or something, please meme the hell out of this guy. I want to see this guy trending with memes everywhere. Like, oh, when your teacher asks you to finish the word, that you get your essay word count. I don't know, something like that. We need to see that. Oh, man. This is so annoying, man. This is so annoying. You know, that guy didn't say Hamas much. He just said, like, blah, 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 blah. But we're gonna keep counting for the next ones. I know the next ones are gonna be fucking terrible, bro. Oh, my gosh. That was a headache, man. That was a headache and a half. Holy, bro. Holy. I wonder, yeah, I wonder how the next ones are. I really hope they're not this long, man. Holy crap. That was too much for me. That was too much for me, man. But, yo, if you're on TikTok right now, I'm live on YouTube as well. Because TikTok might remove my stream, so I'm live on YouTube. Come watch my YouTube. Oh, man. I'm gonna go live on Instagram real quick just to let people know to come over. Okay. I'm gonna title the stream Hamas Israel. I don't even know. Okay. Not a single point was made. Yeah, I know, bro. It was all blah 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 blah. What's your name on Instagram? Absorber YT. Okay, I'm going live on Instagram right now, just to let people know that I'm live. Oh crap. Live videos temporarily unavailable for this account. Oh, they banned me. Oh no, so cute, so cute. Oh, Instagram banned my live streaming capabilities. Wow. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. That's insane. That's actually crazy. What did I do wrong on Instagram, bro? What? I never even streamed on Instagram. And they're banning me. Are they scared of me or something? L Instagram. L Instagram. I'm trying to go live on Instagram. But they banned me from going live. They actually banned me. They actually banned me. Let me try this again. No way. Your account may not follow our community guidelines. You can't go live for 26 days. Man, screw this. Screw this, man. Screw this. This is some crazy... What? What? I can't go live for 26 days? Are you crazy, bro? What about my second account? I have an account with 50K. I have 1 million on my main, but so I can't contact them, those people. I can't go live there, but I'm gonna go live on my second account, see if people join there, so I can tell them to come over. I don't know. I'm probably banned here too. Let me see. Let me see. Okay, I'm not banned here. Okay. Instagram Live. Hello. Hello, Instagram Live. Let me wait for people to join on into the Instagram Live though. Hello, Instagram. Can you guys hear me? And see me? Are people even getting notified about this stream? So my main account, my main Instagram account, they have banned me from streaming, so I can't stream on there. But I'm live on here. I want to let you guys know that I'm live on YouTube this second. We are watching the Israel response to South Africa, and we're counting how many times they say Hamas. The link is in the bio on YouTube. YouTube.com/Hamza Saada. The link is in the bio. Yallah, I'll see you guys there. Peace out. Okay, so that is. Well, that's my Instagram live, but they banned my main. That's crazy, man. Whatever. Anyways, they start back up in like 8 minutes or something, so we should be good to go here in a bit. Post stories on IG. I'm so stupid. Why didn't I think of that? Why did I not think of that? Yo, what's going on? Instagram, Hamza here. I'm live on YouTube right now. Israel has its response going on right now to South Africa, and I'm counting how many times they say Hamas. So come over. The link is in the bio, youtube.com/Hamza Saada. We're also live on TikTok, but they keep banning me, so come over to YouTube. The quality's better, and you can see more. So, yeah. There you go. And I'll put the link on the screen. Free Palestine, chat. Can we get a free Palestine in the chat right now? Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, chat. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I know I missed a few donations, by the way, on YouTube, so I'm going to read them. 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. One second. Hold on. I'm going to do a click here. There we go. Okay. To those that did donate on YouTube. First of all, you did not have to, but I know I saw a few and I missed them, so let me read them. It's my fault. Okay, so Julia with the $2 donation saying, I'll do a deadlift for every Hamas. Bet. I mean, you have the 2 million deadlifts. Yallah. Sam, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. PCSA, thank you for the $11 donation. Saying, damn, Hamas counter means we actually have to pay attention to Zionist BS. That is true. That is true. I mean, I'm just paying attention to when they say Hamas, because I mean, no, I am actually paying attention. But you know, when that guy's speaking for over an hour, just blurring out, blah, 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 literally, like no actual words are coming out of his mouth. It's kind of hard to pay attention. But yeah, I definitely missed a few Hamases, by the way, 100%. Yeah, that's funny. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. People are posting the stream on TikTok, like some pages, some popular pages on Twitter, about how I'm doing a Hamas counter. Hey, man. There's the rest of the board left to go, man. It's gonna be filled out. I promise you. It's gonna be filled out. By the end of this, it's gonna be filled out. But yeah. So Lorena, thank you for the $5 dono. Saying free Palestine. Thank you, Lorena. Thank you. Appreciate that. Shirley, thank you for the $5 donation, saying put on Al Jazeera live stream, please. I looked at it, but they have like a lot of split screen stuff going on, which I think is amazing, but it's so hard to navigate for my streams on how to put it in the frame exactly. But I'll look into it. Yeah, I'll definitely look into it, like right now, like after I continue reading the donos. AV, thank you. I appreciate that. Noor, thank you. AV, if you do want to donate directly to Gaza, the link is in my Instagram fundraiser. Like you can go to my Instagram fundraiser and you'll see it there. It's literally in my bio. You can donate directly to Gaza there. Noor, thank you for the $2 donation saying free Palestine. Thank you, Noor. I appreciate that. Sohail, thank you for the $5 donation saying may Allah bless you for what you're doing. And may he keep you and all Palestinians safe and secure. Ameen. We got you, bro. Yo, Ameen. I appreciate that. Ameen. Thank you, Sohail. I appreciate that. Thank you. And inshallah, Palestinians will be safe and secure. Maybe this will make a difference. I don't know. Felix, thank you so much for the $15 dono saying, to whoever's reading this, don't forget to send salutations to our beloved Nabi during this beautiful Jum'ah day. Alhamdulillah, Ameen. There we go. This is what we need. We need more people like you. Ameen in the chat, guys. Ameen. Thank you, Felix. I appreciate that. Thank you. Xavier, thank you for the dono saying Hamas. Yes, Hamas. Sohail, thank you. Thank you so much for the dono. Bonitech. How do you say it? How do you say your username? I'm so sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but thank you for the dono, the $6 dono saying my blood pressure was rising watching the original stream, but this makes it watchable. I appreciate that. Seriously, it means the world to me. This is why I stream, and this is why I do these things, you know? I want to, because I know, I definitely know it's like insane to watch. Just watch them spitting lies left and right. So don't worry, I'm here to debunk their lies and count how many times they say Hamas. Most importantly, thank you. I appreciate that. T, thank you for the $5 dono saying, I don't know what's more concerning, what's coming out of his mouth or his haircut. I stand with Palestine. Thank you, T. I appreciate that $5 dono. I don't even know what was coming out of his mouth, to be honest. Over an hour of just nonsense. But I appreciate that, T. Thank you. Sihan with the $20 dono saying Israel is the occupier. They've been occupying the Palestinian territories for almost 7 decades, control the water and electricity supply, contaminate the waters, build illegal settlements, all before October 7th. 100% factual. I've said that many times before as well, and that is something that people need to hear continuously. Need to hear, you know. So I appreciate that, Sihan. Thank you for the $20 dono. And to those that did not know that, well, now you do. Now you do. Abdul, thank you for the $2 dono saying stream Subway Surfers until this man is done. I suck at Subway Surfers. I just downloaded it to make the joke. Like, I don't even play that game, but I appreciate that. Thank you for the dono. Merce X8er, thank you for the 18 dirhams. I think that's $5 if I'm correct. Saying Israel's tactic is to keep talking. You're 100% correct, man. I think the reason he spoke for over an hour there is to kind of make us all tired and stop watching. Like literally, he disrupted the whole stream after his 1 hour or 2 hour almost monologue of complete bullshit and random ass words. Blah 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 blah. There's a coffee break where I don't think anyone's gonna come back to listen. No one wants to hear more of this shit. So he is like, I think it's a tactic that they have, man. It's definitely their tactic to get the attention off of them. Like, okay, we don't want them to watch the rest of this. We got to keep talking and bore them with this big ass words. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Energy goes, thank you for the $1 dono. Lorena, thank you for the $2 dono. Is there a plan to bore us to death? Yeah, I think so. Brandolin, thank you for the $10 donation. You did not have to send that. I appreciate that. Brandolin, hype in the chat. Thank you. Communist Gemini with the $2 dono saying, bought myself a black and white keffiyeh yesterday. Let's go. Wear that to every protest you go to. Wear that for fun. Wear that wherever you go. Why not? But definitely to protests if you go to any. Especially the one in Washington, D.C. if anyone's going there. Bring your keffiyehs, bring your posters, bring everything you got to bring. Let's go. Sihan, thank you for the $2 dono saying, Israel arrests children in the West Bank. They do. Children, women, and innocent people. There are thousands of people that are held hostage. They are called prisoners in the West Bank, held hostage in jails that are completely innocent. They are not charged with anything whatsoever. No crimes at all. And if you're going to tell me that throwing a rock, a 7-year-old child throws a rock at an Israeli tank, if you're going to call that assault, if you're going to call that a crime, go to hell. Because that is not a crime. Anyways, Noor Hani, thank you for the $2 dono. I appreciate that. Communist Gemini with another $2 dono saying, I wish this was TikTok. We could mute his mic. 100%. 100%. I mean, I could mute the stream, but we do want to hear the bullshit. He's lying. The IDF was created by a T group. I appreciate that, Tiago. Thank you for the $2 dono. And the rest of the donations I will read after the next half, which is probably going to be 3.5 hours long. I'm just kidding. I have no idea, but that's what it seems to be at this point. Thank you, guys. Free Palestine in the chat. Okay, it started back up, guys. Oh my God. Okay, guys, we have to get the Hamas counter ready. Everyone's ready? Everyone's ready to go, or what? Everyone, double tap the screen right now. Get the stream to 2 million likes so the stream gets sent out to more people. Let's get some more people in here right now. Yalla, 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 yalla. Let's go. Otherwise, I'm going to have to restart this live.
Please be seated.
Because we need more people in here to see this this shit. Okay, let's go. I mean, sorry for my language, by the way. I know.
Resumed, and I now give the floor to Ms. Galit Ragwan. You have the floor.
Madam President, members of the court, it is an honor to appear before you on behalf of the State of Israel. As Professor Shah noted, at this stage, South Africa does not need to prove that genocidal acts have been or are being committed. But it does have to show that the Genocide Convention is actually relevant. It has to show some level of acts and some level of intent.
Did you forget your nails at home?
Professor Shah has spoken to the issue of express intent. It is my task to speak to the circumstances of Israel's actions. Israel cannot possibly comprehensively address today all of the allegations made in South Africa's application in this regard. The applicant paints a dire picture, but it is a partial and deeply flawed picture. The application is so distorted in its descriptions that it prevents the court from properly assessing the plausibility of the rights asserted by South Africa. Plausibility cannot be determined based on the unsubstantiated allegations of one party.
Allegations? What the fuck does it even mean?
If Article 41 of the court statute is to have any meaning. In the time available, I will address 3 aspects of reality on the ground that the applicant has either ignored or misrepresented.
Shut up.
First, Hamas's military tactics and strategy. Second, Israel's efforts to mitigate civilian harm during operational activity. And third, Israel's efforts to address humanitarian hardship in Gaza, despite Hamas's attempts at obstruction.
This one's gonna be a long one, folks.
With respect to Hamas's military tactics and strategy, it is astounding that in yesterday's hearing, Hamas was mentioned only in passing and only in reference to the October 7 massacre in Israel. Listening to the presentation by the applicant, it was as if Israel is operating in Gaza against no armed adversary, but the same Hamas that carried out the October 7 attacks in Israel is the governing authority in Gaza. And the same Hamas has built a military strategy founded on embedding its assets and operatives in and amongst the civilian population. Urban warfare will always result in tragic deaths, harm, and damage. But in Gaza, these undesired outcomes are exacerbated because they are the desired outcomes of Hamas. In urban warfare, civilian casualties may be the unintended but lawful result of attacks on lawfully military objectives.
Blah, 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 blah.
International humanitarian law recognizes this reality and provides a framework for balancing military necessity with humanitarian consideration.
Just say it again.
These do not constitute
say that again.
Genocidal acts.
Just say it.
In the current conflict, many civilian deaths are directly caused by Hamas.
Yeah.
Booby-trapped homes detonate and kill indiscriminately. Mines in alleyways collapse structures around them.
Yeah, here we
And
go
over
again.
2,000 rockets, misfired by Hamas, have landed inside Gaza, causing untold levels of harm.
Show me the
One
proof,
telling
you liar.
example is a blast at the Al-Hali hospital on October 17.
Liar.
Hamas claimed
Liar,
that the
liar.
Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, attacked the hospital.
Yes,
Headlines around the world rushed to repeat this claim.
because they did.
The IDF later proved, and U.S. intelligence
what?
and other national security intelligence agencies independently confirmed that the blast was the result of a failed launch from within Gaza.
Show
It
me.
was not, as Hamas claimed,
You
the
missed
fault
one?
of
Oh.
the IDF.
Show me where it says any of that.
Damage to civilian structures is another fact claimed by South Africa as evidence of genocide. But South Africa does
I
not
missed two?
consider the sheer extent to
Uh-oh.
which Hamas uses ostensibly civilian structures for military purposes.
Ah!
Houses, schools, mosques,
Liar.
UN
You're
facilities,
just trying
and
to justify the
shelters
bombing
are
of
all abused
mosques.
for military purposes by Hamas, including as rocket launching sites. Hundreds of kilometers of tunnels dug by Hamas under populated areas in Gaza often cause structures above to collapse.
Say it again. Say it again.
In the slides before you, you can see a militant priming projectiles for launch on IDF forces in Gaza. You can see the holes in the residential house to hide and launch them.
Yeah, that's so hidden, guys. Oh my god. Like I don't even know what the hell I'm looking
You
at.
can see projectiles discovered underneath a bed in a child's
Planted. Propaganda planted. 100% planted.
Here, a rocket being fired from a school.
What are you fucking
The
showing
launch
me?
site
What is this?
circled in red.
You're just circling some random shit on a screen?
Here you can see firing
Again?
from a UN school. You can see the letters UN on the roof, and the fire is circled in red.
Again, you're just circling random shit.
And here, long-range rocket launchers hidden inside a Scouts Club building.
Once again, propaganda. You probably placed that shit there.
Finally, you can see part of a tunnel that runs for 4 kilometers, including nearby the Erez crossing, which is adjacent to Israel.
Oh my god, the propaganda is insane, bro.
Gaza's infrastructure has certainly been
missed
harmed
one?
during the conflict. However, South Africa would have the court believe that Israel is deliberately and unlawfully destroying homes.
Ow.
Without
I
cause.
hit my foot. Yeah,
Harm
without
caused
cause.
to lawful
Actually,
military
they're Palestinian,
objectives
that's why.
And harm caused as a result of Hamas's actions is not evidence of genocide. South Africa also alleges that Israel has waged an assault on Gaza's health system.
Show the least. Show the
What
least.
South Africa has neglected to bring before the court, however, is the overwhelming evidence of Hamas's military use of such hospitals. Hamas militants retreated to Rantisi Hospital in Gaza on October 7th with hostages from Israel, whom they then held in the basement. In the slide before you, you will see a militant going into Quds Hospital with an RPG.
I don't even.
Hamas
What is that?
fired at IDF forces from near and from within the Quds Hospital.
Look, a guy with a rocket
At
launcher.
Shifa Hospital,
Look.
Gaza's largest, Hamas managed operations from a closed-off area.
I don't
Here
even know
you
what
can
I'm
see an
looking at,
opening to the
man.
tunnel that ran for hundreds of meters directly
missed
under
3?
the hospital. Here, you can see the weapons found in different wings of the hospital.
Yeah, with a Quran right next to it, right?
And here, CCTV footage
Okay,
showing
okay.
armed militants bringing hostages into the hospital's lobby.
The amount of propaganda is insane.
More than 80 militants hiding inside another hospital, the Adwan Hospital, surrendered themselves to the IDF. And here, you can see a weapon that IDF forces discovered hidden inside incubators at the hospital. The director of the hospital has admitted that numerous members of hospital staff belong to Hamas's military wing.
Propaganda after propaganda after
In the
lies
Indonesian
after
hospital
lies.
in the neighborhood of Jabalia, Hamas forces managed their operations from that hospital until the IDF reached it. IDF forces recovered the bodies of 5 murdered hostages from a tunnel dug underneath the hospital.
Blah, 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 blah.
The list goes on. In every single hospital that the IDF has searched in Gaza, it has found evidence of Hamas military use.
You've put that there.
Israel is acutely aware that because of Hamas's use of hospitals as shields for its military operations, in grave violations of international humanitarian law, patients and staff are at risk. This is why the IDF has reached out to every hospital and offered assistance in relocating patients and staff to safer areas. Hospitals have not been bombed. Rather, the IDF sends soldiers to search and dismantle military infrastructure, reducing damage and disruption. Indeed, the tunnel that sat directly under the main building in Shifa Hospital was exploded without damaging the building above. The IDF then withdrew from the hospital.
No.
Damage and harm have occurred as a result of hostilities.
Israel bombed
in
the
hospitals'
hospitals.
vicinity, sometimes by IDF fire, sometimes by Hamas, but always as a direct result of Hamas's abhorrent method of warfare. Israel has published plenty of evidence of the extensive misuse by Hamas of medical facilities in direct violations of international humanitarian law. It has brought journalists to see firsthand. It has recorded calls with hospital staffs to coordinate assistance. None of that is mentioned in the application. In fact, the applicant describes the result and asks the court to attribute malicious intent to Israel. But that is only a possible conclusion if one obscures Hamas's strategy of turning hospitals into terrorist compounds.
Did I miss one? Oh.
The applicant also made much of the fact that force has been even used in humanitarian zones.
No.
What the applicant neglected to inform the court, however, was that Hamas has, in its contempt for Palestinian civil life, regularly and deliberately fired from such zones, turning areas of relief into zones
Did you just tell a girl to shut up? Are you a pedophile?
Here before you, you can see one example of a launch site adjacent to the humanitarian zone, both amplified in larger pictures. And in the next slide, you can see evidence of a rocket launched from next to Gaza's water desalination facility.
Bro, what's happening?
I now would like to address briefly the second issue, Israel's efforts at mitigation of civilian harm. Here too, the applicant tells not just a partial story, but a false one. For example, the application presents Israel's call to civilians to evacuate areas of intensive hostilities, quote, as an act calculated to bring about its physical destruction, quote.
Yes.
This is a particularly egregious allegation that is completely disconnected from the governing legal framework of international humanitarian law. Evacuation of civilians is recognized under international humanitarian law as one of the measures that may be implemented to protect civilians from the effects of ongoing hostilities.
How much did they pay you, bro?
Such evacuation may even amount to a duty that the party to the conflict has towards civilians. While temporary evacuation undoubtedly involves hardship and suffering, it is preferable to remaining in areas of intensive hostilities, all the more so when one party makes a concerted effort to use those civilians.
I'm gonna need another board. Yeah.
The IDF maintains a civilian harm mitigation unit to undertake this task. It works full-time to provide advance notice of areas in which the IDF intends to intensify its activities, coordinate travel routes for civilians, and secure these routes. This unit has developed a detailed map so that specific areas can be temporarily evacuated instead of evacuating entire areas. On the slide before you, you can see that map divided into areas, as well as a screenshot of a video explaining the system in Arabic so civilians may understand it. The IDF also enacts localized pauses in its operations to allow civilians to move. It does this even though Hamas does not agree to do the same, and has even attacked IDF forces securing humanitarian corridors.
Excuse me, I have a request from the interpreters that you slow down the pace of your speaking. Could you please do that? Thank you.
Yeah, you little shit. No one wants to hear your propaganda bullshit.
South Africa stated that the IDF gave 24 hours notice to civilians in northern Gaza to evacuate.
I missed one?
In fact, the IDF urged civilians to evacuate to southern Gaza for over 3 weeks before it started its ground operation. 3 weeks that provided Hamas with advance knowledge of where and when the IDF would be operating. This 3-week period for temporary evacuation is a matter of common knowledge, and the applicant's misrepresentation of this fact is at best an unfamiliarity with the events, and at
Hamas.
worst, a desire to tailor its story to a pre-existing narrative.
This is a problem, by the way, guys. This is a problem because Hamas is not the issue.
IDF employs
This is a problem.
a range of additional measures in accordance with the obligation to take precautionary measures under international humanitarian law. For example, it provides effective advance warnings of attacks where circumstances permit. To date, the IDF has dropped millions of leaflets over areas of expected attacks with instructions to evacuate and
Wow.
how to do so.
So cute. That justifies the bombing,
Broadcast
right?
countless messages over radio and through social media,
Social
warning
media.
civilians
With
to
no
distance
internet,
themselves
no
from
electricity.
Hamas operations,
Oh, you're so smart. Wow.
and made over 70,000 individual phone calls, including to occupants of the targets, warning them of impending attacks.
So
This requires
smart, huh?
time. It requires resources
I missed
and
one?
intelligence. And the IDF invests all of these to save civilian lives. Here you can see the IDF's Arabic Twitter account providing information for civilians to evacuate specific areas, including the location of shelters nearby.
Because they'll open up Twitter and
Yet the applicant
during a genocide.
astonishingly
You fucking-
claims
and they don't have
that
internet.
These efforts are in themselves genocidal. In other words, a measure intended to mitigate harm to the civilian population, sometimes exceeding the requirements of international humanitarian law, is proof, according to the applicant,
It's
of
proof,
Israel's
guys.
intent to commit genocide, when in fact it proves the exact opposite.
Yeah, okay. Bunch of lies, man.
My third topic, with respect to the humanitarian situation. Much attention was given by South Africa to this situation.
And
Despite Israel's efforts to mitigate harm, there is no question that many civilians in Gaza are suffering as a result of the war that Hamas began. While Israel is seeking to minimize civilian harm, Hamas is doing everything in its power to use the civilian population and civilian infrastructure for its own protection, thwarting humanitarian
Shut up,
efforts
bro.
aimed at alleviating the distress of the civilian population.
lies, lies, lies.
Further illustration on Hamas's tactics and Israel's efforts can be found in tabs 4 and 9 of the volume provided to the court.
That for
I
nine.
now turn to describe just some of the humanitarian coordination efforts that Israel has been engaged in, and Mr. Sender will further expand on this. Israel maintains a dedicated military unit called Kogat, responsible for routine coordination with international organizations in Gaza with respect to various humanitarian aspects. It is Kogat that mans and operates the crossings between Israel and Gaza. This includes the Erez crossing,
Missed one? Oh, my bad.
through which prior to October 7, almost 20,000 Gazans passed through into Israel daily for work.
Not daily, and it was 18,000,
Africa
which is
showed a
1
map
point.
yesterday.
That's 0.1% of the
With the Erez
population, you
crossing
fuck.
Marked closed.
Is that fair? 0.1%
What
of
it
the
failed to know
population can go into Israel? By the way, it's
is
not
that the crossing was
20,000,
attacked
18,000,
on
less than
October
20,000.
7th by Hamas, which murdered and kidnapped Kogat staff and caused significant damage. Here you can see some of that damage. Nevertheless, Kogat works around the clock to fulfill its role. Its large professional staff run numerous initiatives, of which I will only mention a few.
I don't even know what I just saw. Like,
First, Kogat manages
See, I
a
told you,
mechanism
it
by
was
which
the-
it
it was the
maintains
Kogat.
an up-to-date picture
Really?
of the needs in Gaza. It does this with the UN, other international organizations, and states whose representatives sit in Kogat's offices. Kogat uses this monitoring to help donor states and organizations
Colgate.
prioritize their
That's what
aid
they
efforts
fucking
to
need.
fit the evolving situation on the ground. Second, Kogat facilitates the entry of aid into Gaza. Israel has publicly stated repeatedly that there is no limit on the amount of food, water, shelter, or medical supplies that can be brought into Gaza. To increase capacity,
But they're-
Kogat has reopened the Kerem Shalom crossing.
Reopened.
as
3 months later,
acknowledged by the
guys.
Security Council in Resolution 2720, despite Hamas putting it under fire. Israel has offered to extend operating hours at the crossing if there is a capacity to receive the goods by international organizations on the Gazan side.
Israel.
Third, Kogat works to reinforce and strengthen medical services. Kogat has facilitated the huge logistical challenge of establishing 4 field hospitals in Gaza, and more are being set up, and 2 floating hospitals. It has facilitated the entry of new ambulances into Gaza, and Israel has even coordinated airdrops of aid over Gaza by Jordan, coordinating these flights with the Israel Air Force operating in Gaza. This, of course, is not to say that nothing more can be done, or that there are no challenges to the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Such challenges exist and change according to the evolving circumstances of the conflict. But it is to say that the charge of genocide in the face of these extensive efforts is frankly untenable.
Untenable.
It is
Yeah.
an inconvenient truth for the applicant's case, but one of the most significant challenges is the fact that Hamas commandeers consignments into Gaza and controls their distribution. Gazan residents have reported that Hamas is regularly stealing aid at the expense of its own population for the benefit of its fighters. This is a tweet stating that fuel and medical equipment was stolen by purported Hamas members from an UNRWA warehouse. UNRWA later deleted the tweet, perhaps under pressure from the authorities.
Perhaps
Here you can
because it
see
was wrong.
Hamas
I don't know.
commandeering an aid truck. And here is another example. Because Hamas for years has used aid
I don't even know what I'm
consignments
looking at, bro.
to smuggle weapons, security checks of all goods going into Gaza are required, as acknowledged by international humanitarian law. Hamas has time and again hoarded fuel, including during the current conflict, which it uses for military purposes to sustain ventilation in its expansive underground tunnel network and for its continued attacks against Israel. Nevertheless, in coordination with the UN, Israel enables fuel to enter Gaza
I don't even know
to
how many I
service
did there,
essential
but-
infrastructure such as sewage treatment, desalination plants, water pumps and hospitals, and cellular infrastructure for maintaining communication.
Blah, 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 blah.
Israel remains committed to helping international organizations and states
more?
involved in the aid effort
That was 5?
to
Oh, my bad.
overcome these hurdles and consistently increase the amount of aid and services available to the population in Gaza, as will be further described by Mr. Sender. Here, a picture of incubators that the IDF provided to Shifa Hospital. Here,
Yeah, okay.
a picture of an ambulance convoy coordinated
Well, it looks
by
like you
Kogat.
flattened that land right there.
A picture of consignments. A picture of ambulances, the entry of which was coordinated by Kogat.
Which was maybe
And
2 or 3
finally,
months
more
later.
consignments waiting to enter Gaza.
Yeah, which you're not letting in. Good. Right?
Madam
Good, good.
President, members of the court, in the time allotted, I have been able to describe only some of Israel's efforts to mitigate civilian harm and to address the humanitarian situation in Gaza. But even this mere fraction is enough to demonstrate how tendentious and partial
I missed
the
3.
applicant's presentations of these facts
Did I?
is, and certainly enough to conclude that the allegation of intent to commit genocide is baseless. If Israel had such intent, would it delay a ground maneuver for weeks,
No,
urging
I didn't.
civilians
Okay.
to seek safer space, and in doing so, sacrificing operational advantage? Would it invest massive resources to provide civilians details about where to go,
Where to go?
when to go,
When to go?
how to go,
How to go?
to leave areas of fighting?
Whoa.
Would it maintain a dedicated unit staffed with experts whose sole role is to facilitate aid and who continue to do so despite having their staff killed and kidnapped? When a population
You missed
is
3
ruled by a
ages ago?
terrorist
Oh.
organization that cares more about wiping out its neighbor than about protecting its own civilians, there are acute challenges in protecting the civilian population. Those challenges are exacerbated by the dynamic and evolving nature of intense hostilities in an urban area, where the enemy exploits hospitals, shelters, and critical infrastructure. Would Israel work continuously with international organizations and states, even reaching out to them on its own initiative, to find solutions to these challenges if it were seeking to destroy the population? Israel's efforts to mitigate the ravages of this war on civilians are the very opposite of intent to destroy them.
My ass.
Under these circumstances, far from being the only inference that could
Like,
reasonably
actually,
be
bro,
drawn
my
from
ass.
Israel's
There's
pattern
no-
of conduct,
Liar,
intent to commit
bro.
genocide is not even a plausible inference. Madam President, members of the court, that concludes my statement. I thank you for your kind attention, and I ask that you now invite Mr. Sender to the podium.
Boo! 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 Boo!
Thank
Boo!
Mr. Radwan, and I invite Mr.
Boo!
to address the court. Yes.
Boo! 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 Boo!
It is an honor to appear before you today on behalf of the State of Israel. It falls to me to address the condition of risk of irreparable harm and urgency. This third condition is, of course, dependent on the 2 preceding ones.
Oh, man.
Professor Shaw and Ms. Rajuan have already shown that the provisions relied upon by the applicant do not afford, even prima facie, a basis on which this court's jurisdiction could be founded. They also showed that the rights asserted by the applicant cannot be regarded as plausible.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
follows that the irreparable consequences cannot, in the present case, be caused by the alleged disregard of rights under the Genocide Convention.
Yalla, say it.
Again, this is not at all to say that the humanitarian situation arising from the present armed conflict is not grave.
Yalla.
Civilians have been severely affected by the hostilities instigated by Hamas. Its systematic strategy of prosecuting war from under and within the civilian population exposes civilians to great risk, and it has brought about great suffering.
Great suffering.
Israel has done and is doing a great deal to alleviate this suffering in very challenging circumstances.
Can we get another coffee break,
In this regard,
please?
the factual account provided by the applicant is once again entirely one-sided. The application and request run no less than 84 pages, but they make hardly any mention of the extraordinary efforts undertaken by Israel and by a host of other states and international actors to improve the humanitarian situation. We again heard virtually nothing from the applicant on this issue yesterday. But this is a critical factor in the request before you. As Ms. Rajuan has shown, it frustrates any attempt to establish the necessary special intent for genocide. It also bears upon the third condition established in your case law. Madam President, members of the court, we know from your case law that the power of the court to indicate provisional measures will be exercised only in exceptional circumstances. There needs to be, as you have said, a real and imminent risk that irreparable prejudice will be caused to the rights claimed before the court gives its final decision. Your order in the Myanmar case, in which the Genocide Convention was also invoked, suggests that the adoption, and I quote, of concrete measures aimed specifically at recognizing and ensuring the right, end of quote, of the group in question to exist would mean that irreparable harm and urgency cannot be established.
Boo!
Precisely such concrete measures have been taken by Israel, which has been facilitating the provision of more and more humanitarian assistance for people in need throughout the Gaza Strip. These steps have not only been increasing so as to meet the developing situation on the ground. They are continuously undertaken specifically in order to prevent harm to the civilian population.
Blah, 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 blah.
These efforts have had an impact.
Yo, he's shaking like crazy,
Just last
bro.
week, for example,
Look at his hands, bro.
With the assistance of
He's
the
shaking.
World Food Programme,
Just wait.
a dozen bakeries reopened with the capacity to produce more than 2 million breads a day.
Wait for his thumb,
The
bro.
World
Hold on.
Food Programme has said the delivery of flour, salt,
Yo, his thumb.
sugar, and yeast continues so as to enable
Whoa.
more bakeries to reopen,
Whoa.
increasing
Oh,
accessibility
he's shaking.
and affordability for thousands of families. And since the applicant mentioned
he-
yesterday the number of trucks entering Gaza each day before and after the war, the accurate average number for
He
trucks
is shaking like
specifically carrying
crazy.
food is 70 trucks a day before the war and 109 trucks a day over the last 2 weeks. All this information may be found in your judge's folder. Access to water has also been a priority. As with food supplies, there is no restriction on the amount of water that may enter Gaza. Israel continues to supply its own water to Gaza by 2 pipelines. It facilitates the delivery of bottled water in large quantities, and it repairs and indeed expands water infrastructure that has been damaged by the fighting.
Blah, 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 blah,
An
blah.
additional water pipe bringing water into southern Gaza from Egypt began
They
operating
blocked off the
a
water.
few weeks ago.
What the hell is he talking about?
Access to medical supplies and services is also growing. Israel has
you
so
cut
far
them off.
facilitated the establishment of 4 field hospitals and 2 floating hospitals.
Cap.
The establishment of 2 more hospitals is underway.
Yeah, okay.
Israel is facilitating
Okay,
the entry
buddy.
of medical teams into Gaza, as also vaccinations, including in cooperation with UNICEF. Ill and wounded persons are being evacuated through the Rafah border crossing to Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, Qatar, and Jordan. Tents and winter equipment
Yeah,
are
displacing
being
them.
distributed
Go ahead. Go
as
ahead.
well. The constant delivery of fuel and cooking gas is also facilitated. According to official data, again in your judges' folders, from 8 December, the amount of fuel entering Gaza has doubled and currently stands at 180,000 liters a day.
Cap.
This is a target amount requested by the UN itself.
So do it then.
Since 21 December, the amount of cooking gas entering Gaza has also doubled, now standing at an average of 90 tons per day. Details of this kind concerning the various ongoing humanitarian efforts are updated every single day on a designated English website of COGAT, the unit in the Ministry of Defense in charge of monitoring the humanitarian situation. When pressing needs are identified, solutions are soon coordinated. A great effort is indeed invested in eliminating bottlenecks so as to improve the entrance and distribution of aid, notwithstanding Hamas constantly stealing it. As you have heard, a joint operations room involving Israel, Egypt, the United States, and the UN operates daily to solve in real time logistical difficulties. Israel also coordinates with various UN agencies and the ICRC to address their own needs. On 15 December, Israel decided to open its crossing at Kerem Shalom with the express intention to improve and upgrade the delivery of humanitarian assistance to Palestinian civilians in Gaza. That part of the government's decision is in your judge's folder as well.
Yeah, and you still kill them.
This has
and
eased
bomb
congestion
them every single
at
day.
the Rafah crossing and helped facilitate the provision of greater amounts of aid. Israel facilitates air routes as well for parachuting aid directly into Gaza. Facilitating a maritime corridor is currently being considered with other states. Madam President, members of the court, again, these are just some examples. But they show that Israel,
Some fake-ass
no doubt,
examples.
meets the legal test of concrete measures aimed specifically at recognizing and ensuring the rights of the Palestinian civilians in Gaza to exist.
In the West Bank
It has
too.
been the daily work
And,
of numerous Israeli
every
officials
Palestinian in the world, maybe?
of
No?
various agencies to ensure that these and other steps are effectively carried out at a time when they and their families are themselves under constant attack.
This guy thinks we're stupid, by the way.
A determination that the multilateral, large-scale humanitarian effort is lacking, or that scaling up access of humanitarian relief to Gaza would be of no avail, as the applicant would have you believe.
Let me punch you and give you a Band-Aid. Yay! Like, that's... is that not what they're doing?
Madam President,
Bombing
members of the court,
Gaza and then
two
giving aid,
additional
quote-unquote?
elements warrant your careful attention. They too suggest that the condition of urgency is not as easily met as the applicant would
Did
have
I miss
you
one?
believe. First, the scope and intensity of the hostilities has been decreasing. Israel's defense minister said last week that Israeli forces would be shifting from the intense maneuvering phase of the war toward, and I quote, different types of special operations.
I need a coffee break.
This statement, made in an interview to international media, is found at tab 16A of the volume submitted. This week, on 8 January, the spokesperson for the Israeli military confirmed that the Israeli campaign had already started a transition to fewer ground troops and fewer airstrikes. The war shifted a stage, he said. As you will see in tab 16B of the volume, he spoke of a new and less intense phase of fighting.
Blah, 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 blah.
He specifically mentioned that Israel will continue to reduce the number of troops in Gaza. 5 brigades, consisting of thousands of soldiers, have already been withdrawn from the territory. Second, the UN Security Council has only recently adopted a resolution for the specific purpose of alleviating the humanitarian situation. By Resolution 2720 of 22 December, which is found at tab 16C of the volume, the Council demanded the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages, as well as the delivery of humanitarian assistance at scale directly to the Palestinian civilian population throughout the Gaza Strip. More specifically still, the Council requested the Secretary General to appoint a senior coordinator in order to establish a UN mechanism for accelerating the provision of humanitarian relief consignments to Gaza. Contrary to what we heard yesterday, this resolution does not, and I quote, remain unimplemented.
All right, guys.
Close quote.
I might run out of ink, by the way.
The coordinator has been appointed and indeed began her work. The Council remains actively seized of the matter. Israel, for its part, is already working with the senior coordinator.
Blah, blah, blah,
And it has just this week coordinated the entrance of a UN delegation into northern Gaza in order to evaluate the situation and map the needs for a future return of Palestinian civilians.
Yeah, okay.
I recall in this connection that in the Aegean Sea case, the court found that it was not necessary to indicate provisional measures where the government in question showed willingness to act in accordance with the recommendations of the Security Council concerning the matter before the court. All these recent developments indicate that the facts as they presently exist do not call for awarding interim relief. They also suggest that the difference between the present case and earlier cases that have come before you are very clear.
Yeah, it's very clear that you guys are bombing
Finally,
30,000 Palestinian people. And
the
you already
lack of
killed them.
urgency within the meaning of the court's case law is further demonstrated by assurances provided before you today by Israel's co-agents. They could not be clearer in stating that Israel remains bound at all times by its international legal obligations. Needless to say, this includes Israel's obligations as a state party to the Genocide Convention. The applicant will have this court say that it cannot take the word of a state. That would be not only unfortunate, it would also be contrary to the law on unilateral declarations of states. Unsurprisingly, your consistent case law suggests that assurances of the kind offered by Israel may well render the indication of provisional measures unnecessary. Madam President, members of the court, the conclusion is that the condition of irreparable prejudice and urgency cannot be met. It is Israel and its citizens who would risk irreparable harm if the request of South Africa were to be granted. Madam President, distinguished members of the court, that concludes my statement. I thank you for your kind attention, and I ask that you now invite Mr. Staker to the podium.
Boo!
I thank Mr. Sender and
Boo!
invite Mr. Christopher Staker to take the floor.
Boo, 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 boo. Finally, he's done. No one knows who's this. Did we hear this guy? I think we already heard this guy, no?
Madam President, Mr. Vice President,
No, we didn't.
members of the court, it's an honor to appear before you again and to represent the State of Israel. You've now been addressed on why the conditions for provisional measures are not met. That being so, there's no need to examine the 9 particular measures that South Africa requests. Nonetheless, for completeness, I will address each in turn and show that their terms are unwarranted in any event. They go beyond what is necessary to protect rights on an interim basis and therefore also have no link with the rights sought to be protected. I start with the first and second requested measures. These would require immediate suspension of Israel's military operations in Gaza.
Please.
This request is frankly astonishing. A request is made by a state not party to an ongoing conflict for provisional measures requiring unilateral suspension of military operations by one party to the conflict only, leaving the other party free to continue attacks which it has a stated intention to do. South Africa cannot argue that similar measures were granted in the Russia genocide case. That case was fundamentally different. In the Russia case, the legality of the military operation itself was in issue by reference to the Genocide Convention. Russia had claimed that its military operation was to prevent and punish genocide being committed in Ukraine. The court found it doubtful that the Genocide Convention authorizes a unilateral use of force in the territory of another state, and plausible that Ukraine had a right not to be subjected to military operations by Russia for that purpose.
That's quite a bit of Hamas, by the way.
The result, provisional measures could protect a plausible right not to be subjected to military operations. In this case, Israel does not rely on the Genocide Convention or prevention of genocide to justify its operations. The lawfulness of the operations themselves does not involve any interpretation, application, or fulfillment of the Convention over which the court has jurisdiction. As jurisdiction in this case is based solely on Article 9 of the Convention, the court cannot find that South Africa or Palestinians in Gaza have a plausible right of the kind in the Russia case. Article 41 of the statute empowers only such provisional measures as the circumstances require to preserve the respective rights of either party. Okay. In the Russia case, a suspension of military operations might have been necessary to preserve a right not to be subjected to military operations. But in this case, the right in issue is South Africa's claimed right to ensure observance of the Genocide Convention. It's absurd to suggest that the only way to ensure observance of the Genocide Convention in a military operation
Free Palestine.
is to prevent the operation from being conducted
Free Palestine.
In order, according to South Africa, to secure the humanitarian response and avoid yet more unnecessary death and destruction.
Get to 3 million likes, guys. Let's go.
Beyond preventing genocide. South Africa appears to argue that the military operations as such are genocidal. But how has South Africa established a plausible claim that this is so?
Because it happened to them, you little shit.
Mr. Hassim argued only that it's plausible, quote, that at least some, if not all, of these alleged acts fall within the Convention's provisions. How does at least some acts turn into the military operations as such? The pictures shown yesterday of various individual incidents, whatever they may or may not say about those incidents, are not evidence of the intent of the military operations as a whole. Professor Shaw has addressed you on why the statements of holders of official positions relied on by South Africa do not establish a plausible claim of genocidal intent. The inevitable fatalities and human suffering of any conflict is not of itself a pattern of conduct that plausibly shows genocidal intent.
It's not intent, you are doing it. I mean, yeah, there's intent as well, but you are literally doing it.
Under Article 41 of the statute. They go well beyond anything required to preserve the specific rights in issue, namely the observance of the Convention in military operations. They seek instead to shut down the military operations themselves. The requested measures seek to reverse the Bosnia case. When provisional measures were ordered in that case, the armed conflict was still in progress. The allegations in that case were similar to those made in this case. Bosnia and Herzegovina specifically requested a provisional measure requiring Yugoslavia to cease and desist from any and all types of military or paramilitary activities against the people, state and government of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but the court did not grant it, even though, unlike in this case, an ongoing genocide was said to be in progress on the territory of the very state seeking provisional measures.
Has he said Hamas
and
once?
Both parties to the
I don't think so.
were parties to the case.
Not this guy, not this guy.
The court said expressly that it refused because such a measure would be for the protection of a right
Mention it, bro.
that could not form the basis of a judgment in exercise of jurisdiction.
I'm ready. I'm ready for you, bro. I'm ready. Come on.
There is no reason to depart from that case law. In any event, provisional measures cannot be indicated if, as in this case, they would cause irreparable prejudice to the respondent.
Why is he talking about other countries, by the way?
Out of proportion with the protection that they're intended to give to the applicant. The fact is that provisional measures impose burdens on the party to which they are addressed in order to protect potentially non-existent rights of another party. It would be contrary to the sovereign equality of states for such burdens to be imposed without regard to their effects on the state to which they are addressed. As Judge Abraham said in the Pulp Mills case, in a request for provisional measures, the court is faced with conflicting rights claimed by the respective parties and cannot avoid weighing those rights against each other. In the Financing of Terrorism Convention case, Judge Tomka said that the court, when considering requests for provisional measures, is expected to weigh and balance the respective rights of the parties. He went on to note, citing specific examples, that this requirement has been observed
South
in
Africa.
the court's practice. The court has made clear in other provisional measures orders that it must preserve the respective rights of both parties.
Look at that Palestine.
It's established jurisprudence
I love
that Article 41 of the statute,
beautiful people,
quote, has as its object the preservation of the respective rights claimed by the parties, unquote. That is to say, both parties. The respective rights to be preserved are thus not only the plausible but yet to be determined rights claimed by the applicant, but also the plausible and yet to be determined rights of the respondent to engage in conduct that provisional measures would restrain. Other international dispute settlement fora also balance the interests of both parties when ordering provisional measures. Already a century ago, a mixed arbitral tribunal recognized a principle that the possible injury to the addressee of provisional measures must not be out of proportion with the advantage which the claimant hopes to derive from them. The Institute of International Law has now recognized a general principle of law that international and national courts and tribunals may grant interim relief and, as a requirement for such measures, that the risk of injury to the applicant must outweigh the risk of injury to the respondent. This principle is also recognized by other international dispute settlement mechanisms.
How many pages you got left, dog?
Other principles applied when indicating provisional measures are that none of the parties can be put at a disadvantage, that measures should not go beyond what is necessary to achieve their end, that the measures must not cause irreparable prejudice to the rights of the respondent,
blah, 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 blah,
must be avoided. These principles are all aspects of the most basic and elementary duty of the court to ensure equality between the parties. Article 41 of the statute states that provisional measures are to preserve the respective rights of either party. It does not refer solely to the rights of the applicant for provisional measures. Not to apply such principles would be absurd. Suppose that the Genocide Convention and the court had already been in existence during the Second World War, and that the Allied powers were all parties to the convention without reservation, while the Axis powers were not. Suppose that a neutral state had brought proceedings against the Allied powers, alleging breaches of the Genocide Convention and their conduct of hostilities, and requesting provisional measures requiring the Allies to cease hostilities immediately, invoking pictures of civilian fatalities and suffering in the war as a plausible claim. Such provisional measures would have required the Allies to surrender to the Axis powers, even though the case against them might later have been held to be wholly unfounded, without any consideration by the court of whether genocide was being committed by the Axis powers. Provisional measures must have their limits. Could a provisional measure require a state to change its government or to vote in a particular way in the General Assembly? The answer must be no. Can provisional measures require a state to refrain from exercising a plausible right to defend itself? The answer must be the same. In this case, the balancing of interests must take into account the following. First, Hamas is considered to be a terrorist organization by Israel and other states.
With the pen, guy!
Second, it's undisputed that on 7 October, Hamas committed on Israeli territory a large-scale terrorist attack. This is continuing. Third, Israel's right to conduct military operations in exercise of its right to defend itself has been recognized internationally. Fourth, Israel is committed to complying with international humanitarian
this is not smart
law.
water. This is
And fifth,
alkaline
Israel
water.
is taking steps to alleviate the humanitarian situation. The co-agents and other counsel have and will address you on this. Sixth, this is not a case where provisional measures could require both parties to a conflict to exercise mutual restraint. They would not be binding on Hamas. Seventh, Hamas has made clear its intention to carry out continuing attacks against Israel and its citizens. Eighth, provisional measures would deprive Israel of the ability to contend with this security threat against it.
He saved Hamas with the end.
More rockets could be fired into its territory. More of its citizens could be taken hostage, raped and tortured.
Show me
further
proof.
Atrocities could be conducted from across the Gazan border, but provisional measures would prevent Israel from doing anything. Ninth, provisional measures would end attempts to rescue those already taken hostage. 10th, suspension of military operations would give Hamas space to preserve and build its capabilities, enabling it to pose an even greater threat and to use remaining hostages as bargaining chips. If granted,
let the Palestinian hostages go.
An organization recognized internationally as terrorist has committed a terrorist atrocity in the territory of a state. And a third state now seeks an order from this court that would prevent the attacked state from responding, but which would impose no obligation on those responsible for the attack. The requested measures would not put an end to the conflict, but only to military operations by one party to the conflict. These measures would assist the other party and encourage the commission of further terrorist attacks. In this respect also, the Russia case is fundamentally distinguishable from this case.
I missed one.
Provisional measures should be a temporary shield to preserve claimed but as yet unproven rights pending a decision on the merits. Instead, they're being used here as a sword to give an advantage to one party in a conflict over another. The irreparable prejudice to Israel is obvious, so is the lack of proportionality. Madam President, members of the court, Israel's position is that there is no conceivable basis on which the first two provisional measures could be ordered. I turn then to the third requested measure. This would
just the
require
third one?
Israel
Not the 3,000th one?
to take all reasonable measures to prevent genocide. This is analogous to the first provisional measure in both the Bosnia case and the Myanmar case. There are two further objections to this measure. First, its wording is not confined to the current military operations in Gaza. It's expressed to apply in relation to the Palestinian people generally. This opens the possibility to later claims that actions by Israel having nothing to do with Gaza are in breach of this provisional measure. While the Convention obligation to prevent genocide may not be confined to current operations in Gaza, the subject matter of this case is. There is no justification for the provisional measure to extend beyond the claim itself. This particular objection applies also to the fourth and seventh requested measure. A second objection is that this third provisional measure would impose the same obligation on South Africa as well. No reason is given for this. The other requested provisional measures do not apply to South Africa. Why this one? Is South Africa saying it may fail to comply with its obligation to prevent genocide if not compelled to do so by a provisional measure? Unlikely. Rather, through this provisional measure, South Africa appears to seek a special mandate from the court to act internationally in relation to Palestinian issues on the basis that it seeks to prevent genocide. Indeed, if South Africa's right to bring these proceedings is disputed, South Africa might argue that this provisional measure gives it the right. However, provisional measures cannot confer special mandates on states, and no justification for doing so is established in any event. The third provisional measure should therefore not be granted. I move on to the fourth requested measure. This would require Israel to desist from committing acts within the scope of Article 2 of the Convention. There are fundamental objections to this measure.
Or 125.
First, it has no counterpart in the provisional measures ordered in the Bosnia and Myanmar cases. What's the need for this special novel measure? No explanation is given. Second, it uses the word desist, which implies that violations of the Convention by Israel are occurring. It seeks an implied ruling on the merits. In the Bosnia case, you declined to grant a provisional measure requested by Bosnia and Herzegovina that Yugoslavia must cease and desist from all acts of genocide. You should also refuse this request. It's one thing to call on a state to comply with its obligations under the Convention. It's quite another to imply that a state has failed to do so. While provisional measures are without prejudice to the merits, such an implied finding will tarnish the reputation of the respondent state, which is not only unprincipled, but also unnecessary within the meaning of Article 41 of the statute to protect claimed rights on an interim basis. Third, this measure refers to acts within the scope of Article 2 of the Convention. Now, although an act is not within the scope of Article 2 unless it's committed with genocidal intent, the proposed wording leads subsequently to argue that the words mean only the acts themselves, whether committed with genocidal intent or not. On that interpretation, the effect would be to shut down Israel's military operation. Every killing or wounding of an opposing combatant by Israeli forces, every collateral civilian casualty, no matter how lawful under international humanitarian law, would be a breach of this provisional measure. Even security checks by Israeli forces of humanitarian aid entering Gaza, in accordance with international humanitarian law as recognized by Security Council Resolution 2720, might be argued to be a breach. The request for this measure should be rejected for the same reasons as the first and second measures. I next address the fifth requested measure. This specifies
how many requested measures do you have? How many requested measures does he actually have, Chad? Does anyone know? Because he's on his fifth one. I don't know how many he has.
Purposes of the fourth.
Is it 9?
Measure. This measure is also objectionable.
9?
First, it's not a freestanding measure, but an elaboration of paragraph C.
We're going to be here for another hour, man.
Fourth measure is not granted, then the fifth measure falls away. Secondly, no analogous provision is found in the provisional measures order in the Bosnia and Myanmar cases, and no special need for such a new measure is established. Third, it again uses the word desist. Fourth, it seeks further impermissible implied rulings on the merits. For instance, it refers to so-called expulsion and forced displacement of Palestinians from their homes. This is an apparent reference to Israel's practice of issuing calls for civilians to temporarily evacuate areas.
Temporarily, but they'll never come back. They'll never let them back
to mitigate harm to civilians.
Same thing that you did in 1948, the Nakba, 750,000 Palestinians displaced.
Amount to expulsion and forced displacement of Palestinians from their homes.
Yes.
Does South Africa suggest that Israel should cease giving warnings to civilians before military operations? How would that protect the rights that South Africa claims? Similarly, paragraph C of this measure seeks the court's ruling that damage to buildings and
Look at these
military
guys. Look at the South African
presumably even when
people.
lawful under
I love
international
them. I love them.
humanitarian law, amount to the destruction of Palestinian life in Gaza. Overall, paragraphs A to C of this measure, read together
They're so
with
cool. Look at
paragraph
them.
C of the third measure, seek the court's ruling on the merits that evacuation calls, the current humanitarian situation and damage to buildings all amount to deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life within the meaning of Article 2C of the Convention. The reality is that the conflict and the humanitarian situation cannot be resolved overnight.
Blah, blah.
This provisional measure seems designed to ensure that Israel will be in breach of it as soon as it is made. Its sole purpose seems to be to prejudice the merits, not to preserve rights on an interim basis. It should also not be granted. The sixth requested measure incorporates two separate measures.
I'm about to play Minecraft,
The first of these would require Israel to ensure that its military and organizations and persons subject to its control do not commit acts falling within Articles 2 or 3 of the Convention. It's analogous to the second provisional measure in the Bosnia and Myanmar cases, respectively. But an objection to this is the reference to any irregular armed units or individuals that may be directed, supported, or otherwise influenced by Israel. This wording has simply been copied from the second provisional measure in the Bosnia and Myanmar cases. However, in those cases, the applications instituting proceedings expressly allege the existence of irregular armed units. The reference is inappropriate in this case. There's no suggestion of forces other than the Israel Defense Forces on whose commitment to international humanitarian law you have and will be addressed on today. The second part of the sixth provisional measure contains an obligation to punish genocide. No such provision was included in the Bosnia or Myanmar provisional measures order. Punishment of genocide is not something that needs to be done urgently in order to protect claim rights on a provisional basis. This measure should also not be granted. The seventh provisional measure also comprises two separate measures. The first would require Israel to take measures to prevent destruction of evidence. The court has indicated such a measure on two recent occasions, but declined to do so on two other recent occasions, despite a specific request by the applicant.
Take another coffee break.
In the cases where it was
please.
granted, the application of provisional measures specifically alleged that evidence was being destroyed or concealed. In this case, South Africa makes just a bare assertion that there are serious concerns about the destruction of evidence and its effect on future investigation into crimes, and a hampering of scrutiny of Israel's actions. South Africa appears to suggest that the effects of the military operations themselves amount to destruction of evidence, making this yet a further provisional measure, effectively seeking a suspension of military operations. The granting of this measure would imply that there is some reason to suspect concealment of evidence when in fact none has been identified. This again would be an unprincipled and unnecessary tarnishing of reputation. The second part of this measure would require Israel not to impede access to Gaza by fact-finding missions, international mandates and other bodies. However, it is noted first that access to Gaza from Egypt is under the control of Egypt. Secondly, Israel has no obligation under international law to allow access from its territory into Gaza. Thirdly, a provisional measure to this effect was requested by the applicant in the Myanmar case, and it was not granted by the court.
Blah, 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 blah.
The eighth requested measure would require Israel to submit regular reports to the court on measures taken to give effect to the provisional measures. Provisions for such reports were made in two recent provisional measures orders, but on four other occasions it was refused, despite being specifically requested by the applicant. This shows that such measures are not routinely granted. They've been granted occasionally when specific action has been indicated. In Armenia versus Azerbaijan, the court said that a report was necessary.
Can this guy shut up? He speaks too much. He speaks too much.
The undertakings made by the agent of Azerbaijan. South Africa does not justify the inclusion of such a measure. there is no shortage of publicly available Israeli material and reports about the present situation in Gaza. Finally, the ninth requested measure is a non-aggravation
Finally,
measure.
the ninth one.
On 2 recent occasions, such
About
a
time we
measure
got
was
here.
specifically requested by the applicant but not granted by the court. Again, such a measure is not the norm, and again, South Africa does not justify its necessity. Provisional measures for non-aggravation have been indicated in cases where both parties have been directly involved as actors in the facts of the case, and the provisional measures have always applied equally to both parties. Thus, in Myanmar, the court declined to grant such a measure. An obligation of non-aggravation cannot fairly be imposed on only one party to a case or only one party to a conflict. If the proposed measure was granted, South Africa would remain free to aggravate its claim dispute with Israel, and Hamas would not be impeded from escalating the conflict with Israel. The only purpose of this provisional measure appears to be to prevent Israel from responding to any such escalations. Again, there's no justification for this measure.
There's no justification
Madam
for 30,000
President,
Palestinians that you
members
killed,
of the
innocent
court,
ones, half of which are
that
kids.
concludes my arguments on the inappropriateness of the specific measures requested by South Africa. I thank you for your careful attention. I invite you to call on Mr. Noam, co-agent of Israel, to conclude Israel's arguments.
No. Before we do that,
Thank Mr. Statement,
coffee break.
And I now invite the co-agent of Israel, Mr. Gilad Noam, to address the court.
Boo! 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 I missed
Madam
one.
President, members of the court, Council have shown that the applicant has failed to make the case for the indication of provisional measures. More specifically, 1.
This was
the
going to
court
be a lot.
lacks prima facie jurisdiction, as the applicant has not shown any dispute between itself and the respondent at the time the application was submitted. Indeed, it tried to mislead the court into believing that one had existed. 2. The applicant has failed to meet the condition of plausible rights to be protected in the present circumstances. 3. The simple reality is that the events which are the subject of these proceedings are occurring in the framework of a war instigated by Hamas, governed by the legal framework of international humanitarian law. They do not fall within the remit of the Genocide Convention. 4. The standard of irreparable harm and urgency is not met either. Israel is constantly taking concrete steps, together with others, to address the humanitarian situation in Gaza. 5. Finally, we have shown that each of the provisional measures sought are unwarranted and prejudicial. All this requires that we give attention to 2 fundamental matters arising from these proceedings. The first is that the applicant seeks to portray an image of Israel as a lawless state that regards itself as beyond and above the law. The applicant paints an image of Israel as a state in which the entire public service, military, and society have in concert discarded Israel's long-standing commitment to law and morality.
Law and morality.
Singularly consumed with destroying an entire population.
Yeah, okay, buddy.
That is patently false. I can attest to that firsthand as the Deputy Attorney General for International Law. In this position, I regularly advise the government on issues of international law, including humanitarian law. This has not changed since October 7th. The conflict with Hamas poses serious operational and legal challenges in conducting close-quarter urban combat while mitigating harm to the surroundings, in seeking to put a stop to Hamas military use of hospitals while minimizing disruption of medical services, in helping civilians leave areas of the most intense fighting while Hamas forces them to stay in the line of fire, in facilitating the provision of aid when that aid is constantly stolen by Hamas, to sustain its military efforts. In balancing humanitarian considerations with the need to act forcefully against an adversary that still fire rockets deep into our country
I missed a
and
few.
holds our citizens
My bad.
hostage.
It's just so boring.
As the authority responsible for international law advice to Israel's government and cabinet, I can attest that in contending with these challenges,
You're zoned out.
Israel
No, I was
remains
reading the
committed
chat.
to international law. When the cannons roar in Gaza, the law is not silent.
The law is not silent. Yeah.
This has been the case since Israel's establishment in 1948, the same year the Genocide Convention was adopted.
The same year the Nakba
Israel's
happened.
commitment to the rule of law
750,000 Palestinians
has remained
displaced.
steadfast
Tantura,
throughout
Deir
our
Yassin.
history, despite the complex challenges we face as a nation. It reflects the commitments made at the time the state was established, as reflected in our Declaration of Independence, which makes express reference to the principles of the Charter of the United Nations. In 1948, too, Israel was at war, forced upon it. Yet, despite being engaged in a war for its survival, the young state gave great importance to immediately establishing an effective, independent, and impartial legal system.
What?
Indeed, one of the first steps the newly formed IDF took in the midst of a war
was to
establish
displace
a military justice system.
750,000 Palestinians from their homes,
the institutional structure of the IDF.
to destroy hundreds of villages,
Thus, the IDF military advocate
to kill
general
thousands
calls
of
the
innocent
strength in the
Palestinians.
IDF, saved its chief of staff. And it
Bullshit is coming out of your mouth.
independent
Lies.
from the military chain of command. Her staff, including international law experts, are interwoven into all aspects of the military's activities. They provide legal training and education. They are involved in the drafting and preparation of military plans and doctrines. And they provide ongoing legal advice on a range of issues, including targeting, weaponry, and obligations towards the enemy's civilian population.
No matter how hard
This
you
remains
try,
the case
you cannot
in the
rewrite
current
history.
conflict. The civilian legal system, including my department in the Ministry of Justice, serves as an avenue of review for the military legal system. The Attorney General stands at the head of the civilian legal system. In this position, she too enjoys full institutional independence. At all times, the doors to Israel's courts, including Israel's Supreme Court, remain open. This court is widely acknowledged for its willingness to consider issues pertaining to the conduct of hostilities, including ongoing hostilities. Indeed, during the current conflict, the court has already considered petitions on different aspects of the war. Israel's legal system also ensures accountability. The IDF has a robust law enforcement system. It also maintains an independent mechanism for examining and investigating alleged violations of international humanitarian law. This mechanism is subject to review and oversight by the civilian justice system, including the Supreme Court. This system has been structurally strengthened over the past decade, including by consultations with like-minded states and international experts. Assessing incidents in large-scale hostilities outside of a state's territory requires expertise. Our system is provided with substantial resources and authority to fulfill its mission. The military mechanism is already reviewing incidents relating to the current conflict. The rule of law remains a foundational pillar of the State of Israel. The applicant defames not only Israel's leadership, but also Israeli society. Misrepresenting a selective assortment of statements to suggest genocidal intentions and the abdication of core moral values. Israel's counsel, Professor Shaw, addressed this claim.
Blah, 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 blah.
The shock, anxiety, and deep pain that have affected Israeli society since October 7th naturally lead to harsh statements regarding the enemy that is committed to, indeed driven by, destruction of Jews and Israelis. But our legal system knows how to draw a line between statements that may be troubling and even obscene, but fall within the right of freedom of speech in a democratic society.
Democratic?
And those statements which go beyond that right.
The funniest shit you've ever said, man.
Publicly recently, any statement calling for intentional harm to civilians contradicts the policy of the State of Israel and may amount to a criminal offense,
dictatorship,
including the offense of incitement. Several such cases are currently being examined by Israeli law enforcement authorities. You will find this statement in tab 16D in the volume. Madam President, members of the court, a second general matter we alluded to is the broader implications of this application for Israel and the wider international community. As we have shown, this case concerns a large-scale armed conflict with tragic consequences for civilians on both sides. Yes, there is a heart-wrenching armed conflict, but the attempt to classify it as genocide and trigger provisional measures is not just unfounded in law. It has far-reaching and negative implications that extend well beyond the case before you. Ultimately, entertaining the applicant's request will not strengthen the commitment to prevent and punish genocide, but weaken it. It will turn an instrument adopted by the international community to prevent horrors of the kind that shocked the conscience of humanity during the Holocaust into a weapon in the hands of terrorist groups who have no regard for humanity or for the law. If every resort to force in self-defense against an enemy hiding behind civilians can be portrayed as genocide and trigger provisional measures, an inevitable tension will be created between the Genocide Convention and states defending themselves against the ever-increasing capacities of terrorist organizations.
Are you threatening the Genocide Convention?
Doing so,
what the fuck was that?
To terrorist organizations that they can commit war crimes and crimes against humanity and then exploit this court to obtain protection.
What?
For us, provisional measures would lead to a perverse situation. It would effectively allow Hamas to continue attacking the citizens of Israel, to hold 136 hostages in unbearable conditions, to keep tens of thousands of displaced Israelis from returning to their homes, and essentially to promote its plan to massacre as many Israelis and Jews as it can.
Really?
Madam President, members of the court, in living memory of the atrocities that gave birth to the term genocide, in the aftermath of which the State of Israel was founded, we are witness to a concerted and cynical effort to pervert the meaning of the term genocide itself. The Genocide Convention is too important a foundation in humanity's aspiration to defeat barbarism and evil to be belittled in this way. And the faith that has been placed in international law and its institutions is too cherished an asset to be squandered. We appeal to this court not to be taken down that dangerous road. Madam President, members of the court, for all the above reasons, Israel requests the court, in accordance with Article 60, paragraph 2 of the rules of the court, for the reasons given during the hearing of January 12, 2024, and any other reasons the court might deem appropriate. 1, to reject the request for the indication of provisional measures submitted by the applicant. 2, to remove the case from its list. Madam President and members of the court, that concludes Israel's observations. Thank you for your kind attention.
Boo! I thank the co-agent of Israel, whose statement brings to an end the single round of oral argument of Israel, as well as the present series of sitting. In accordance with the usual practice, I shall request the agents of both parties to remain at the court's disposal to provide any additional information the court may require. The court will render its order on the request for the indication of provisional measures submitted by South Africa as soon as possible. The agents of the parties will be advised in due course as to the date on which the court will deliver the order in public sitting. Since the court has no other business before it today, the sitting is declared closed.
Boo! 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 No one likes Israel. No one likes Israel, bro. Boo! Look at this guy. You said Hamas. This was you, by the way. All of this line, this was you. This guy, right in the right in there, the first guy. This was you, bro. You were the first line. My friends. Welcome to today's class. Today we're going to be talking about the Hamas counter. Today we have come across the how many Hamas timing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 20, almost 27. Almost 27. Wait, there's probably more, right? There's probably more. They're gonna definitely, there's definitely more. There's definitely more. There's definitely more. Come on, there has to be more, bro. Because they said they're gonna let people stay, right? They said they're gonna let people stay. I don't know. But anyways, we have counted 133, 133, because we didn't finish the last tally. We didn't finish the last. But I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's more, okay? Because I missed a few. Someone said I missed. How many did I miss? Someone said 3 earlier. So we're going to finish this one off. Okay. This one. And there you go. We have ended with 137 is what we have ended with. 137 Hamas mentions in this 3-hour or something, 3-hour session. Okay. And that is an average of every minute. Like the 1.5 Hamas is mentioned every minute in the whole thing. They mentioned it more than every minute. Actually, no. That doesn't add up. No. Almost every minute. 137, 3 hours, but with the coffee break and then with the breaks that they were doing, basically a minute. They mentioned Hamas once a minute, once every minute. I mean, that is kind of insane, man. This is the final Hamas counter right over here. Probably even more than this, okay? Because I didn't count all of them. Some people said I missed some because they say it so much. I probably missed some of them. So 1 every minute on average, almost. If you want to be like more accurate, it's like 1 every minute and a half. But like, come on, this is too much for Hamas not being the issue. This is unacceptable. This is inappropriate. This is not allowed. For Hamas not being the issue, which it is not. If they wanted to target Hamas, then target Hamas. But you are targeting innocent civilians. 12,000 kids have been killed so far in the past 3 months. I'm not talking about any day before that, any day before October 7th. I'm not talking about the thousands of prisoners, quote unquote, which are hostages that are held hostage in jails in the West Bank. Thousands of which are not charged for any crimes at all. I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about the kids that have been dying. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm only talking about since October 7th till today, 12,000 kids have been killed, thousands under the rubble which have not been found. Hundreds of families wiped off the record, wiped off the radar. Every single family member and hundreds of families are completely gone. Last names have been completely demolished. This is unacceptable. Hamas is not the issue. You are killing innocent lives. You are killing kids. You are killing babies. You're killing pregnant women. You are killing innocent people. This should not be a thing. Every minute you are mentioning Hamas. This is disgusting. Unacceptable. Holy shit. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. End of the stream. I'm done. Khalas. I can't stand this. I can't stand this. If this goes through, if this shit goes through, that is unacceptable. If it goes through for Israel, if they cancel it, and if this works for Israel. But this has to go through for South Africa. South Africa has to win this. The genocide in Gaza must stop. The occupation in Palestine must be put to an end. The apartheid of Israel must be put to an end. We need to see a free Palestine from the river to the sea. Okay? That's it. All right? Free Palestine. And when we say from the river to the sea, what do we mean? Give the Palestinians equal rights is what we mean. There are 65 Israeli laws that go against Arabs that live in Israel. Okay, you cannot tell me that there is no apartheid. You cannot tell me that there are no illegal settlements in the West Bank. You cannot tell me that Gaza has not been blockaded for the past 16 years and water, electricity, and every source of human needs is controlled by Israel, land, air, and sea. You cannot tell me that. Hamza signing off. Hamaza. Okay? I'm done with this one. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. I was turning into speed for a second. And keep Palestine in your prayers. Inshallah, Palestine will be free. My people will be free, inshallah. And the genocide will stop. The killings will stop. The deaths of the Palestinian people, the innocent Palestinian people, will stop. The displacement of the millions of people, of the innocent Palestinians, will stop. 2 million Gazans have been displaced in the past 3 months, majority of which have been displaced for the second time, multiple times. Majority of those that were displaced in Gaza in the past 3 months were displaced in 1948 during the Nakba. The Nakba of 1948, where 750,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homes, hundreds of villages were destroyed, and thousands were killed. Innocent people, babies, kids, pregnant women. Rapes happened. Palestinians were raped in Tantura. You can look this up. Go watch the movie Tantura, the documentary. You'll learn about it a lot more. You'll hear the Israeli soldiers from then speak about what they did. You will hear the stories of what happened in 1948. Deir Yassin as well needs to be talked about. The massacre that ensued, not only in Deir Yassin, but hundreds of villages were destroyed, man. And it's yeah. You're all over my feed on Twitter. Alhamdulillah. That's the goal. That's the goal, is to get this out there, get people in my stream so I can tell them the truth. That's what this is all about. Okay? And we're only getting started. I do not plan on stopping anytime soon. If I, for some reason, stop posting, it's not because I wanted to stop. It's because maybe something happened and I was restricted. If you guys did not know, while I have your attention, they banned my TikTok account permanently. It was permanent at the time. It was not temporary. It was a permanent ban. Obviously, you're watching me on TikTok if you're watching me on TikTok. And I have my TikTok account back. But I had to appeal for it. Not even appeal for it. There was no appeal option. I had to contact TikTok, my connections at TikTok, and they had to put it back. And they said, sorry, it was an error. I open it back up. I get my notifications. I can see which videos they removed. They removed like 10 of my videos about speaking about Palestine. They are censoring Palestine, not just myself. I am not special. They are censoring Palestine. They banned Sean King from Instagram, who was a very big voice, a very, very loud voice for the Palestinian people. And, you know, your final count was 142? Yes. Not 137. No, 137, I think. It's 137. I think it's 137. I think so, right? Because each one of these is 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100, 105, 110, 115, 120, 125, 130, 135, 137. Yes. 137. That is how many times they said Hamas in a nearly 3-hour long session. I mean, that's kind of insane. How does that even happen? How does that even happen? That is unacceptable. Anyways, guys, listen. I will be straight up with you guys. I was wanting to end the stream. I do want to end the stream. It's 6:30 a.m. and I do need to sleep. However, I did the same thing last night. I streamed until 6:30 a.m. last night. I went to bed at around 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m. And I will not lie to you. Obviously, when you go to bed around that time, and your boy needs at least 8 hours of sleep, by the way. So I slept for a while. I woke up at 6 p.m., like 5:30 p.m., 6 p.m. So I will be honest, I am a little tired. I am tired, but I might as well just stay up for a few more hours and stream for you guys. So what I will do is end this stream, though, and go, take a break for a little bit, breathe, maybe eat something, refuel, fuel back up, and I will be live again for another few hours, going on Omegle and speaking to people about Palestine. Okay? I will continue. I will do it maybe for another hour. I know I just said a few hours, but I think an hour is solid. I definitely owe you guys some more more content, quote unquote, I guess. But I definitely think we got to do that right now. I'm just trying to. That's kind of crazy, though. That is kind of crazy. 137 Hamas. Look at this. Thumbnail face. 137. That is stupid. That's stupid. Also, go follow me on Instagram if you guys are new, by the way. Instagram is AbsorberYT, ABSORBERYT. I know it's a very complicated username for Instagram because my name is Hamza. That used to be my gamer username before I started doing all of this. So I will be changing my username later. That's why my TikTok one is Hamza now. It's not Absorber anymore. But that is what it is right now. AbsorberYT. Go follow me on Instagram. I also have a Twitter, Hamza_1948. I know that, a lot of tweets are blowing up right now of me, doing the counter and whatnot. But I definitely would appreciate it if you guys went to go follow my Twitter, because I know that, you can post uncensored stuff on there, and I want to post the full videos of Israelis saying insane stuff to me, saying they want to kill me, they want to kill all Palestinians. I want to post that on Twitter. The full versions of that, because on TikTok I have to blur out every word, and sometimes you can't even understand what they're saying because of how much I'm censoring the video, because TikTok won't allow anything other than that. Same thing with Instagram, but Twitter allows words uncensored completely. So I will be uploading the uncensored versions of all my TikToks on my Twitter. Please go follow me there, share my tweets, repost them or retweet them, whatever. And yeah, I would really appreciate that. Hamza_1948. Now, I do not know when they will be coming up with a decision for this whole thing. I have no idea when their decision is. I don't know if there's another hearing that we're going to be listening to before a decision. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know. But I will be keeping you guys updated no matter what. In 2 weeks, people are saying 2 weeks. Okay, in weeks' time. Okay, I don't know. I really don't know. But I will be keeping you guys updated both on Twitter and on Instagram. And by the way, I see a lot of people saying oh, you're so immature by doing blah 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 blah, mocking them like that. I mean, they're spitting out complete and utter lies Of course I'm gonna do that and interrupt them and make it so it's at least a little entertaining as well when some people are getting annoyed by the amount of lies they're spitting. I mean, it's disgusting about with the amount of lies they are spitting is disgusting. Okay? So I'm sorry that as a Palestinian, I'm getting fed up with the amount of lies that Israel has been spitting for the past 75 years. I am sorry. Like, come on. Are you serious? Disgusting. I mean, the amount of lies are did you watch the whole thing? I watched the whole thing. Okay? And all I heard were lies. And all I heard was Hamas. Also, by the way, I did have another marker just in case I ran out of ink. I thought they would say a lot more, but I think the next time they talk, there's going to be double this, probably quadruple, but I did bring an extra marker just in case. Yeah, anyways, guys. Hamas counter. Handala. You guys know Handala? Handala. I put it on the back of this. That's kind of crazy. But it was a Easter egg. Okay. We love Handala. Okay. Bye-bye. Adios. Assalamu alaikum. Bye-bye. Salam, guys. I will catch you guys later, okay? Maybe 5 minutes. Literally, give me 5 minutes. I gotta just, relax. Because I've been sitting on this chair and listening to bullshit for a few hours, okay? So let me just relax for a little bit, 5-10 minutes, and I will be right back streaming for another hour, okay? Inshallah. Yalla. Salam alaikum, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Ooh, I will be back. My Twitter's Hamza_1948 for those that are asking in the chat, by the way. You need a 7th of October counter? They said Hamas way more than 7th of October. I was considering doing October 7th counter, but I thought Hamas was funnier, which it is. Which it is, so, yeah. Yep. Okay, I'm going to end this stream. I'm going to post an update of the counter on my Instagram story. And Actually, no, I'll post it on my Instagram as a post. I need everyone to go like it, okay? I will literally post it as a post. I think that'll be funny. And I won't post it. I'll write something up because I want to caption it like Hamas is not the issue, all of this and all of that. I want to give some details on why I'm even doing this in the first place. Because yeah, sure, it's a funny thing, Hamas, but it's also to educate you guys and let you know that, look, even though Hamas is not the issue, look how many times they're talking about it. Look how many times they have mentioned it. Even though it is not the issue. It does not, there's no Hamas in power in the West Bank. And there's an occupation going on with illegal settlements and thousands being held hostage. There's no Hamas there in power, right? There was no Hamas before 1988. And the occupation started in 1967 for the West Bank. If you want to be more technical and more whatever, 56 years of occupation, and Hamas has been around since 1988. That is less than 56 years. And I'll mention that in the caption as well, so you can share it and why I'm even doing this to begin with. It is a gag. Obviously, I'm trying to be funny, but it's also Hamas is not the issue. Anyways, love you guys. Take it easy. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Peace. I'm out.